Today is Monday, April 19th, 2021. We're here for the purpose of the regular city meeting of the Elmhurst Council. The governor of the state of Illinois has declared a gubernatorial disaster proclamation in response to the COVID-19 outbreak, restricting individuals to gatherings of 50 persons or less, and all of the city of Elmhurst is covered by this disaster area. In light of the ongoing COVID outbreak, the mayor of the city of Elmhurst has determined that an in-person meeting for April 19th, 2021 city council may not be practical or prudent in light of the disaster. All of the aldermen of the city council participating in the April 19th, 2021 city council meeting, wherever their physical location, shall be verified and determine that they can hear one another. I'm assuming you can all hear me, because we have no one on Zoom. That having been said, I will now ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Tamer, I'd ask you to call the roll.
Park. Absent. Levin.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Honquist.
Here.
Brennan.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Reuter. Here. Verimus. Here. Hill.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Polonsky. Here. Cahill. Absent. Toledo. Here. I have 12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent, we have a quorum. Okay, on to agenda item 3.1. I'm going to ask Clerk Tamer, who also happens to lead our youth commission, to meet me down here by our podium. We do youth awards in the city of Elmhurst, We solicit and ask for nominations of youth awards. Even with COVID, it never ceases to amaze me some of the creativity of how the youth of our city participates and volunteers their time to make our city a better place. And we're going to recognize a couple of those kids. They're here tonight. And CJ, are you on the line?
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Oh, hi, Elaine.
Hi, it's Jade.
Okay, so Elaine Leibovitz is our treasurer. She's participating on our conference line, and then on the public line, we also have CJ, who's someone who couldn't make it tonight in person, but he's here virtually, and we'll be talking about him in just a minute. So, Clerk Tamer, let's meet down there. Yeah, I'm going to ask Jackie to say a couple of words first about the Youth Commission and a little bit about the awards and the nominating process. And then I'll step in and do some of the kids who are here.
So typically, I'll take this off for talking. Typically, this is done every year, and we're honoring kids around town that have done service. This year, we did a little bit different because there weren't much service opportunities going on. So this year, we reached out to kids that did their service towards COVID. So as a lot of Elmhurst was not doing much, right? We're all kind of sheltering in place. These kids rose to the occasion, stepped up. They were nominated by different entities in the town and went with our commission, which is 16 members, and we're honoring them this evening. They did great work. When a lot of us were down and out, these kids stepped up. So glad to have you guys here. Thank you.
Whoops. Okay, thank you, Jackie. So the first person I'd like to call up, and if you have people with you and they're comfortable with it, I'd ask them to come up with you. So if you got your family, I'm asking you to come up too. Peter Vreeland, everyone else just rolled their eyes. Oh no. Peter, I want you to come on up. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at Veer. Peter, come on up, and I think you got your mom and dad. Well, you tell us who you have with with us.
I have my mom and dad with me.
Okay, so Peter looks like he's ready to take the microphone. I think I'm going to give him that opportunity. You want to say a couple words, Peter? You can say no.
No.
All right, all right, he came up here charging, I wasn't sure. So Peter had this cool idea, at the very beginning of the pandemic, his brother had a birthday party, or a birthday, and it was the pandemic, and it seems like it's been going on forever, but you can all kind of put yourself in the mindset of what it was like when it first started, and we weren't sure what to do. So Peter's brother was one of the first people who participated in one of those drive-by birthdays. So Peter had this great idea that maybe he would help other people in town who had birthdays, and he went out and you procured some signs, right? You bought some signs?
We used the ones that we were.
Used the ones you had. But then you offered this service up to help people do drive-by birthdays, and you charge them $20. Mm-hmm. This is where Peter and I veer off. If I were his age, I would have kept the money back in the day. But Peter actually turned around and donated it. So not only did he do a service to residents of Elmhurst, but he turned around and donated it to the Elmhurst Walk-In Assistance Network. So Peter, you were nominated, and we want to recognize you for your hard efforts. And I'm going to have, Jackie has a plaque for you right there. Round of applause for Peter, please. Somebody should be taking a picture.
So I was thinking at the end.
Well, not Mom. Well, we'll do one at the end, but let's get, here, Bill, Deputy.
You guys get in.
All right. Okay, Veer Soule and your family, please come on up. Stop navigating with this thing on. Veer, why don't you tell the audience who we got here with you?
So I'm here with my mom, my younger brother, and my dad.
Fantastic. Okay, so Veer, did you work at the Elmhurst Yorkfield Pantry?
I have before.
Okay.
but-
You want to say a couple words? One of you guys take me up on this. Anyway, Veer had a great idea. He is an Eagle Scout applicant, or are you?
Yeah,
are you
applicant.
applicant?
Yeah.
Still Eagle Scout applicant?
I turned it in, but it hasn't been approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're in good shape. Anyway, Scouts always require do a good turn daily or help others at all times, and Veer took that seriously, and he decided to do a food drive on behalf of the Elmhurst Yorkfield Pantry, where he and the rest, he led his troops, and they took a letter and they drove around to 1,000 residents in the city of Elmhurst, dropped them off, and in the letter it stated, I think I might have gotten a letter, in a week later you were going to pick up food, right?
Yes.
So they were anticipating maybe 800 pounds of food. They got almost 3 times that amount. It's just a great example of how someone will take a good idea and actually follow through. And it's actually part of my speech for later on tonight. It's one thing to have good ideas, but it's another thing to actually get them done. So how about a big hand for Veer? So Veer was nominated by 2 people, right?
Correct.
Is it his principal?
Yes.
His principal also nominated him because he is a participant, active participant on PSAC, which is the Principal Student Advisory Council, and also in the Schedule Advisory Committee. So nominated a couple of times, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Take a picture. Kind of goofy to say smile, isn't it? Oh, Dad's not letting go. Oh, just me and him. Come over here. All right, here we go. This is going to be a trivia question, the last picture ever with the mayor
Yeah.
before I step down. So congratulations. Okay, Ava. Where's Ava? I met her earlier. Oh, here she is. Ava, you want to bring up, is your dad filming it? Is he actually filming it? Okay. Well, tell us who we have here.
So this is my dad and this is my mom.
Okay, so most of these are COVID related. So for many of us, well, for all of us, dealing with COVID was something new and unprecedented, and people reacted in certain ways. And a lot of people in certain areas around town found themselves shorthanded, as did District 205, for example. So at one point, District 205, for those of you who don't have kids in school, District 205 had to make certain decisions based on resources available, and they actually had to cut some of their programs. Social studies and science at the time, was it both of those? So Ava here, who is a senior at York High School, took it upon herself to develop science programs for younger kids. What ages?
Grades 4 through 8.
Oh, now, I got to offer. You want the microphone?
Yeah, you know what?
Oh, look at this.
Sure.
All right.
So I'm not going to make this into like an Oscars acceptance speech or anything, I promise. But I would just like to say thank you to the board for selecting me. Thank you to Miss Sweet for nominating me. I've really enjoyed working with her son. Thank you to my biology teacher, Miss Moss, who was even remote supporting me in my project. And I think the greatest honor has been just seeing my students light up at every presentation when I answer their science questions. It brings me so much joy. So I'm excited to be here. It's an honor, but I just want to thank Ms. Sweet for nominating me. And I really enjoy working with the kids every week.
So, congratulations. Before we hand her plaque, so what did she do? She actually created her own online science programs for kids what ages?
Grades 4 through 8.
Grades 4 and 3. She actually did an experiment a week and then did an interactive program, and it's on YouTube for these kids. And I asked her, oh, well, how many did you do? Thinking maybe 5. 19. She's done 19 of these online classes for kids, stepping up. I think that's just awesome. And you're going to do it through the end of the year, did you say?
End of the year, yes.
Where until she goes on to Virginia. University of Virginia, right?
Yep.
University of Virginia. So your award, congratulations.
Awesome.
Smile, I think. Okay.
Thank you.
Jackie, should I do this out of order and do CJ last?
We can do CJ.
All right. Hey, CJ, you there?
Yeah.
Are your parents with you?
Yes, my mom is.
Okay, great. Tell your mom hi.
Hi.
Oh, there she says hi. Great. Okay. So, CJ, a man after my own heart, actually is a fisherman, and he enjoys fishing at the Eldridge Park Lagoon, which is in the southwest corner of our town. And I actually fish there every year. Alderman Kennedy?
Not so much.
Not so much? Okay, Alderman Kennedy's a fisherman. But part of the reason why Alderman Kennedy doesn't fish there is because there's not a lot of fish. And CJ contacted the Park District. Because of budget cuts, the Park District was limiting what they were doing necessarily, as we all did. All of us did in terms of what we had to do, sacrifices for our budget, because we all had less revenue coming in over the last year and a half. Well, CJ likes fishing so much in outdoor activities that he worked with Angela Ferrantino, the Director of Facilities at the Park District, and he was able to raise funds within just 2 weeks of over $2,000, and they were able to stock the pond at Eldridge Park. Not only did they stock it this year, but there's plans to stock it next year with the money he raised. So how about a round of applause for CJ? CJ is also talking to the Park District about potentially having fishing lessons or wildlife education and possibly a tournament, which I will attend if I'm eligible. CJ, is there anything you want to add to that?
I was excited to be nominated, and I basically did this because I saw a lot of people fishing there. Not many people are catching stuff, so I thought it was just a good thing to do to help the community.
Okay, CJ, I'm going to accept this award on your behalf, and you'll have to come by and pick it up sometime in the next 2.5 weeks. Does that sound about
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Oh, CJ Klimek, yeah, that's who we're talking
okay,
to.
yeah, yeah.
Did I not say that?
Your wife wanted me to add that in.
Oh, according to my wife, CJ, you'll understand one day. I didn't mention your last name. This award, this Youth Volunteer Award of the Year goes to CJ Klimek. Thank you, CJ, so much for your hard work. How about a round of applause for CJ? All right, now I'm out of order. Oh, Sydney Lee. I met Sydney earlier. Sydney, why don't you come on up here? I know you got the biggest family here, so bring them all up. All right, CJ, first tell me who you got here.
I have my mom, my brother, my dad, and my grandparents are over there.
They're going to stay over there? They can come up. Come on. All right, with all those people here, Sydney, I'm sure you want to say a few words.
Yeah, just.
Great. No, come on up there. Floor is yours.
Okay, so I just wanted to thank Miss Jill Hayes for nominating me, and also I created like a charity concert. It was like virtual this year, obviously because of COVID, and I just wanted to thank everyone who participated in that and also helped support it as well. And thank you for having me here.
So a little more detail. Sydney Lee founded a nonprofit organization called Patched In, and she, as she said, she held a concert, and she established a GoFundMe account benefiting an organization called Direct Link. And Direct Link provides both personal protective equipment and critical care medications to frontline workers in hospitals. So you're sitting at home, you're wondering what you can do to pitch in, and here is a young lady who took the bull by the horns and did it. So how about another round of applause? A plaque for you. Let's see if we can get as many people as possible in this picture. Slide down, come on. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, oh, you want a picture? Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, congratulations. Jackie, did you want all the kids to stand up? Is that what your hope was? Yeah, we can get together with you. Okay, sure. Everyone who received the award tonight, who's here. Oh. Yeah, come on up here. Make room right here.
Have Jackie get in the picture.
Yeah, Jackie, you in the picture.
Okay.
We're booking it. Perfect.
Make your eyes crinkle.
Good. Congratulations again.
Just want to say one more thing. Mayor Morley really believes in the kids. And when he came on 8 years ago, he nominated all of us to the Youth Commission. There was only 2 at the time. We're 16. He said, bring back the youth awards, do some education, job and volunteer fair. And we did, and it's because of the support of Mayor Morley. So this is his last one. So if we could all give him a round of applause. He's worked really hard for the town.
You get a picture. Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
All right. Where are my glasses? Okay, thanks again, everybody. On with the agenda. Agenda item 4, receipt of written communications from the public. At this time, is there anybody in the audience who has any written communications they wish to submit? If so, please raise your hand. Anybody with written communications? Oh, yes. Youth Award recipients, you are not required to stay. So if you want to, I'd leave if I could. If you want to go celebrate, yes, absolutely. Congratulations again, Mom and Dad. Okay, receipt of written communications, agenda item 4. Any written communications, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll go on to public forum. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to address the council on any issues they so choose. We ask out of respect for work that we have to get done here this evening and respect for others who may want to speak, you keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you go over 3 minutes, I will give you a gentle reminder and ask you to wrap up. When your name is called, I ask you to go to this microphone over here to my right, not the one where I presented, but the one kind of over by Kevin Diamond. We ask that you state your name as we are recording. Address is optional. Clerk Tamer, at this time, is there anybody who has signed up for public forum?
Yes, Mayor, we have Paula Pezza on the phone.
Okay. Ms. Pezza, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Paula Pezza, 275 Cottage Hill. Alderman Bram,
Jim, can we turn?
on behalf of my family and the thousands of Elmhurst residents that you have represented during your 20 years as a steadfast public servant, we'd like to say thank you. You've represented your ward with pride, integrity, and dedication. And through the years, you also became known as the mayor for all of Elmhurst. You were always the one people could count on to listen, respond, and guide them, no matter where they lived or what their request was. The example you set is the true meaning of public service. During your tenure, your position was never about you. Always about what you could do to better serve the people you represented. In other words, your service was selfless. You were always the one that was willing to stand up and ask the tough questions that you knew were at the top of the minds of those who elected you, so that the people could better understand not only the issue at hand, but the complexity involved in making tough decisions. No longer having your voice, which was always the voice of the people, will be a huge loss for our community. We hope that future elected officials will take note of the hard work you have done and the honesty and integrity you have displayed, and follow the example you have set. You can certainly walk away tonight with pride, knowing you served well and your dedication was very much appreciated. So thank you, Alderman Bram. You will be missed.
Okay, Clerk Tamer, anyone else?
Irene, I hope I'm saying the last name right. Dining? Dinning, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Irene Dinning. I live on the 300 block of Winthrop here in Elmhurst. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago near Fullerton and Pulaski in the 35th Ward. Each Christmas, our precinct captain delivered a fruitcake to our door. When it came time for me to vote in my first election, our precinct captain escorted me into the voting booth and demonstrated how I could and should vote. I thanked him and voted as I chose fit, on my own and independently. That event was long filed away in my memories until the recent Elmhurst mayoral election, where a number of you, our aldermen, felt it necessary to publicly endorse specific individuals. Some comments that were made regarding one candidate in particular could only be characterized as mean-spirited, inappropriate, and not representative of a town whose motto has been character counts. Just as I did not need a precinct captain in Chicago to tell me what levers to pull and candidates to vote for, I do not need my elected officials in Elmhurst to tell me who to vote for. I appreciate those aldermen who did not offer public endorsements in this race. It is my hope that in the future others may also follow this approach and allow voters to reach their own conclusions as to who the best candidate may be to lead our wonderful city. I thought I left Chicago and its partisan politics behind a long time ago. This election made me realize that I may not have. I would also like to take this time to thank Alderman Michael Brum for running a campaign that was above board in all respects. I'm grateful for his 20 years of public service. Alderman Brum has set the bar high for our aldermen in this community by reaching out across ward boundaries and making sure that all Elmhurst citizens' voices were being heard and their needs are being addressed. He's been transparent in his communications and decision-making and fiscally prudent. While I cannot say that I agreed with each and every vote he cast, I can say that I appreciated the fact he always communicated the whys of his decision and did not hide behind them. This is a trait that was admirable, and he has earned my respect as well as that of many others here in Elmhurst. I wish Alderman Brum well in his future endeavors, and his voice of reason will be missed. Thank you for your time and listening.
Okay, Jackie, I'm sorry, Alderman Tamer? Not yet. Clerk Tamer.
Kim Messina?
I'm Kim Messina, and I live in South Elmhurst. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to make comment on, public comment on the bike plan. I am here on behalf of the people in Elmhurst who bike or walk in our town. Now is the best time to move the bike plan forward for the necessary planning to implement some of the least economical suggestions to make our streets safer to bike and walk in our neighborhoods, and also to ride or bike into, to walk or bike into the city center. As more and more people move into our town, a safer walking and biking infrastructure will be a necessity for everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Armeline Moretti.
Honorable Mayor Morley, alderpersons, and guests, I hope you will approve the Elmhurst Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan to move forward in the approval process. With the increase in walking and biking, this plan includes recommendations that will make our streets safer and bicycle education for all ages throughout the Elmhurst community. And I forgot my name is Armeline Moretti, and I live on the north side of Elmhurst. Thank you.
Chris Healy.
Chris Healy, 658 South Hawthorne. Good evening, esteemed members of the City Council and Alderman Honquist. I'd like to wish Alderman and Mayor-elect Levin and all of the newly elected alder people of the City Council good luck in the coming years. But I wanted to, main reason here is I wanted to recognize Mayor Morley and Alderman Kennedy for their service for all these years. My plan was to talk about each individually, but when I was going through things, I recognized that with every issue I want to talk about, I could say, well, the other one did that too. And when I think about the tremendous strides the city's made with stormwater management, the two of you are almost exclusively to thank for that. When I think about economic development, you two were at the forefront of that, neighborhood safety, go right on down the line. You guys both did a hell of a job for Elmhurst. And on top of that, you're both good guys, and I call you my friends. And thank you for your service, and good luck in the future.
Pat Wagner.
Quite an exciting evening for a couple of us.
Sir, could you identify yourself?
I'm sorry, Pat Wagner, 684 South Swain Avenue, Elmhurst, Illinois, 60126. I'm here to recognize a couple people, Steve, you and Jim as well, but I do want to recognize Mike Bram as well, and it's nice to have a couple people come out and see you off, Mike. Must be nice. Best of luck to you. I agree with Chris, what he said. You know, in my last meeting, it was very heartfelt. It's a little emotional. It's a little bit sad, but at the same time, I think Elmhurst is much better to have you two in charge of the stormwater issues that we went through and the overall interaction with some of the other governmental bodies. I think you could probably take the last 8 years and put that into a civics class if they ever taught civics anymore. And people would learn a lot from you too. So anyway, you guys are important people to the city of Elmhurst. Jim, you did an incredible job. I was lucky enough to be in your committee for 2 years, excuse me. Felt like 4. But you're an incredible leader, incredible person, and a great friend, and I really appreciate all you've done. Steve, same for you. Really impressed. Truly, you were the very first call I got when I won back in 2009, and just reached out to say, hey, what's going on? How's it going? What do you think? And quite frankly, I didn't know what to think. So you were really a guidance at that time for me, and then obviously matured into the role a little bit more. But thank you for being a leader of the city, getting us through a really tough 12 months, but really the last 96, you've been an incredible person. So great mayor, and a lot to learn from. So thank you both. I wish you both immense success and best of luck. Thank you very much.
That's it. That's all we have, Mayor.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it for public forum for those who had a chance to sign up. Is there anybody who did not have a chance to sign up on our sign-in sheet but wishes to address the council at this time? If so, please raise your hand. I see two people, and I'm going to go with ladies first. Susan Rose is here.
Thank you. I just came to say thank you really to all of the public servants who gave so much time and who are leaving the council. Elaine Leibowitz, who I understand is leaving, who is a marvelous person, worked with her in the League of Women Voters, and I just did a fantastic job. Alderman Mike Bram, I served with him. We were Alderman the 3rd Ward, Alderman Jim Kennedy, and Mayor Morley. I want to talk specifically about Jim Kennedy, who is really the epitome of what it takes to do public service and how people get into this. A lot of people think it's people have ambitions or whatever. Jim Kennedy came to this because of a very local issue that landed in his backyard, literally his backyard. And that was his first brush with city government. I remember talking with him about that, and I was so impressed with how he approached it. If you want the background on that, you can look at that. But he then later on went to run for alderman, and I think has just done a fantastic job because he's always maintained that sense that this is about, it's about the little guy, it's about the neighborhood, it's about what this city government can do to help and what individual aldermen can do to do that. So I think Jim Kennedy just has been a sterling alderman, and I really wanted to thank him for that. And then I really want to thank Mayor Morley for his incredible leadership in these years. I first served with Steve on Development Planning and Zoning Committee. His intelligence and his common sense. Steve always had a sense of how does this affect, again, the same thing like Jim, how does it affect the homeowner? We've got policies and they're there, and a lot of people say, oh, we can't have any variances, that's our law. But our law is also that we can have variances, that we vary from that. And I think Steve was a really good proponent of that, and that's the thing he's carried over into being mayor, and I admire him for that, and I want to thank him for his many years of service, and I'm sorry to see him go, but thanks very much.
Thank you, Susan. Kevin Graff, you had your hand up.
My name's Kevin Graff, and I live at 233 Cayuga, and I also echo the sentiments of Susan around the public service that both of the people that are leaving, Jim Kennedy, Mayor Morley, and Alderman Bram. I also, too, think about public service and what that meant, and I must say an interesting story is during all the stormwater, I was part of that, at least from the way that it was approached, and I must say that the mayor at that time came walking down and talked to me about your comments, and you know, he said, if you're interested, you should put your name in the hat and you should start attending meetings. So I did that, and at that point, you know, I hadn't decided if I wanted to run for park board or alderman, which again, I chose park board for personal reasons, and you know, now doing public service, I see everything that goes on from that perspective, and I must say it is a welcoming sight to see people put their names in a hat for all of the aldermans that ran for the different wards, and I just want to say thank you to all three of you, and as well as Elaine for the service. All of you have been doing this for a long time, so it's going to feel weird not coming to a Monday meeting and then coming to a subcommittee meeting after that, I'm sure. So take the time and enjoy that, and I just want to say good luck to each and every one of you. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else in council chambers here who didn't have a chance to sign up but may wish to want to address council at this time, please raise your hand. Seeing none, Jim, is there somebody, is there anybody on the public line who wants to address council at this time? I'm going with none there. Okay, that concludes our public forum. Thank you, everybody. On to consent agenda, agenda item 6. At this time, is there any item any alderman wishes to have removed, to vote no, or provide additional comment? Alderman Dunn?
6.21.
6.21, okay. Anyone else? Alderman Toledo?
6.6.
6.6. 6.6, 6.21. Anyone else? Alderman Bram? No, okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Yes? Oh, Alderman Deuter.
6.17.
6.17. 6.6, 6.17, 6.21. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items 6.6, 6.17, and 6.21. Motion by Alderman Bram, second by Alderman Levin. Clerk Tamer.
Park, absent. Levin,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Conquest,
Aye.
Brennan,
Aye.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Verimus,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Palumski,
Aye.
Cahill absent, and Toledo.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Consent agenda minus items 6.6, 6.17, and 6.21 is approved. On to agenda item 6.6. This is a report out of finance. I'd ask Clerk Tamer to read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council direct the City Attorney to prepare an amendment in the Municipal Code of Ordinances, changing the water rate and sewer rate and the capital investment recovery charges as outlined above, effective for usage billed on or after May 3rd, 2021. Signed, Noel Toledo, Chair, Scott Levin, Vice Chair, Michael J. Bram, Alderman, and Jennifer Verimus, Alderwoman.
Okay, to put this before council, I ask for motion to approve the recommendation, the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Toledo, second by Alderman Levin. Alderman Toledo, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I inadvertently had this put on the consent agenda, but this is an important topic that the public was very much interested in during the campaign, so I thought it was deserved a moment of some comments supporting this report before voting on it. So first off, I'd like to thank our residents. I'd like to thank our public works staff, our finance team, as well as our consultants, Baxter and Woodman, for everyone working together to come to a financially responsible, long-term plan to ensure our water distribution and wastewater system will continue to deliver the high-quality service that Elmhurst expects at a reasonable price. First off, I'd like to address a question that came up very often, and I think is a reasonable question on behalf of our residents. Why are Elmhurst water bills so high? And there's not a simple answer to that, but there are three very, I think, reasonable reasons that drive that comparison. First off, comparing Elmhurst bills to other cities can be like comparing apples and oranges. And this is due to the many different ways that different municipalities provide water and sewer services to their users. Some have water districts, some have fees that take in extra money that is not found in the water bill directly, for example. The second reason that it's difficult to compare is that some cities that we compare ourselves to simply have newer facilities. Newer facilities are easier and less costly to maintain. They have newer technology. Our Elmhurst wastewater plant was actually built for the first time in 1930, and its most recent major upgrade was in the 1980s. Finally, many of the districts that we have surveyed have not completed the necessary multi-million-dollar upgrades to meet the EPA-mandated phosphorus removal targets. We are doing so in this plan, and that drives our rates higher than communities that have not yet done that, but will have to do so. I have note, Itasca is one community near us that has completed their phosphorus upgrades, and their rates are higher than our rates in many other communities. So with that said tonight, I would like to ask for everyone's support of the Finance Committee's recommendation, We are recommending a combined rate increase for the water, sewer, and capital investment recovery charge of 4.25%, and that's for a typical family of 4 with residential service. This, on average, will amount to about $8.23 increase on each bi-monthly bill. Of note, Elmhurst has not increased its water and sewer rates since April of 2019. Part of that was in order to understand and account and accommodate for the financial impacts that many of our residents have experienced due to COVID-19, but also because we were awaiting the long-range planning document that was provided to us by Baxter and Woodman, so that when we did recommend changes to the rates, we were recommending them based on knowledge and understanding of what we need to do for our system. So tonight we are only asking for the rate increase for this year. The Finance Committee reviews water and sewer rates on an annual basis, and we will continue to do so and adjust as appropriate. But I wanted to provide some insight and context for the great work that we've done, that the staff has done, to get us to this recommendation, and how it paves the way for our understanding of our strategy moving forward. So the Baxter and Woodman report that many people have read, combined with input from our staff at the water treatment plant, has put the city and the residents in a very good position to proactively plan for the next 10 years. And I say that because I think a lot of residents, saw the Baxter and Woodman report and were very concerned with the projections of what the rate increases might be over the course of 10 years. And I think that is understandable and reasonable. And one of the things, though, that I think is important to recognize is we are a community that is planning. And by having knowledge, we have the power to plan for how we want to invest in our system in a way that is not reactionary, and that always results in a better outcome for the residents of the city. So the goals of the long-term plan that these rate increases contemplate are to ensure that our system receives A, the necessary capital investment that it needs to maintain itself and meet the future EPA requirements, B, the required operational costs to just operate the system on an annual basis, and then C, it does begin to importantly rebuild our operating reserve that has been near zero in the last couple of years, attaining a goal of 25% of our operating expenses by the year 10 of our plan. So unfortunately, these goals cannot be accomplished at our current rate structure. So by working together, we have been able to recommend as a committee a lower rate increase than was originally anticipated in the Baxter and Woodman report, while we're at the same time protecting the quality of the system overall. So, with that long-winded overview of a very complex and long report, I do ask for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions? Alderman Dunn.
Yeah, I want to thank the committee for their thorough work in assessing the need for a rate change. That's driven by water supply, it's driven by the sanitary sewer, and then the capital investment that's required. And I want to thank the committee, but in particular I want to thank Chair Toludo for her response to my many questions regarding water rates, and in particular this report. But this is a very old plant that we have. Everything that goes on there costs millions of dollars. We have a cover replacement in bundle 4, I think it was, that's close to $10 million. So things add up very quickly to continue to operate that facility at a high level. I think in the end, the 4.25% overall increase is reasonable. The approach that was taken, I think, is very solid. I had initial worry about the surcharge and the capital investment that was being planned, and were we kicking the can down the road too much? And with all the plan that we have in place for the next 10 years for that plant is pretty extensive, and I'm confident at the end of that time frame, with all the bundles of investment and the IEPA loans that we're getting, that we're going to be in good shape with this, with the water treatment plant. So I want to make that statement. Again, I thank the committee for their effort, and I think this is, having skipped last year, any increase, having a 4.25% increase this year is pretty outstanding. Thanks.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Tamer to call the vote.
Park, absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Honquist.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Verimus.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye. Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Halemsky.
Aye.
Cahill, absent. Toludo.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays. Motion carries. Agenda item 6.6 is approved. On to 6.17. This is a report out of Public Works, and ask the clerk to read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the city move forward with the Crestview Area Brinhaven Subdivision Pilot Stormwater Improvement Project, that $25,000 from the general fund be appropriated for this project, and the city attorney be authorized to prepare the necessary city council documents. Signed, Jim Kennedy, Chair, Mike Brennan, Vice Chair, Alderman Brian P. Cahill, and Jacob Hill.
To put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Brennan. Alderman Kennedy, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that Clerk Tamer noted, I think you said 25,000. It's actually in the report is 50,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So just
Thank
to
you.
clarify that, this report is around obviously individual home flood proofing. It's something we talked about even back when Alderman Wagner was on Public Works, of there were going to be projects that were not going to be fiscally viable because of their magnitude. And so as we've done a lot of other work, we are now at the point where we want to pilot an area to help some individual homes in Crestview and Brenhaven. And so asking the council for $50,000 to do that. I believe it was Alderman Deuter who pulled this item, so I would defer to her next.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. The previous discussion on the broader program that Alderman Kennedy has just referenced, there was a great discussion. A lot of comments were made, and I just want to reiterate a couple of the comments I had at that time. One of, I should note on the broader program, I was opposed to that program and I voted against it. I'm also going to vote against this report and just want to explain a little bit about why. One, I think the program is being proposed here as a stormwater project, and I think it's important to make a distinction between what's being proposed here and what we have done in the past on our stormwater projects. All of our projects up until this point add capacity to our stormwater system and also reduce the level of flooding in a particular area. The project that we're talking about here does neither of those things. The flooding level won't change, the capacity of our system won't change, and instead we are going to fund the property improvement so that the home that might be surrounded by flooding is not affected as much by it. So I think that's an important distinction. The other point I want to make is that by approaching this program and having the city pay 100% of the cost to flood-proof those improvements, I am concerned that that establishes an expectation that going forward, if homes are affected by overland flooding, the first person homeowners will look to is the city to cover the cost of their flood-proofing. That's of particular concern because we know we've not addressed all of the areas in town that experience overland flooding, and also it's not uncommon after a storm event that we hear from folks who have been affected in areas that we did not know about previously. So I think I'm concerned about the liability of the city going forward and that it may be unchecked. And to be clear, I support the approach of flood-proofing in these two areas, but I would have much rather have us take an approach where we cover half of the cost, which would be consistent with other programs that we have undertaken to support improvements to private properties. So for those reasons, I'm going to vote against this report tonight. Thank you.
Additional comments? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. In regards to this report, I as well voted against the larger project, if you will, in regards to floodproofing. Floodproofing, to me, as I stated when I spoke to that report at that time, is a false sense of security. It's not doing anything in regards to what our mission and what us on the dais have stated in the past, that our mission is to keep stormwater in the city right-of-way. This is not doing that. This is doing the opposite of that. I do understand that we're not going to be 100% throughout the city of Elmhurst, and you know, I've come to that realization with probably everybody else in town. But with that being said, I think this causes various issues. Like I said already, a false sense of security. Eventually, water is going to find its way into the house, no matter how much floodproofing you're going to do. A home ages, land settles, cracks happen in the foundation, and that leads to my next point. What about the liability? The city of Elmhurst in this pilot program or in the greater program is putting up 100% of those dollars. So where does the city of Elmhurst fall in regards to its liability? And some of you may be wondering why I'm actually commenting against the program that is actually for part of my ward. It is interesting because after my first vote on the larger program, I spoke with many of the residents who would be able to utilize this program, if you will, and they agreed with me. They said, Mike, we want the right solution to keep it out and away from our house, not to just keep it out of our house on a temporary basis. Water around your house doesn't allow you to get in the house, doesn't allow you to leave the house. Again, there's safety issues there. So just like the greater project, in regards to cost, yeah, this is a drop in the bucket overall. I'm not a big fan of pilot programs overall. If we're going to do something, we need to be confident that we're doing what's right the first time. And so I cannot support this as well.
Any other comments? Alderman Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. It's very clear that Crestview and Brenhaven subdivisions, they have stormwater issues. And you know, this requires the city's attention. So the purpose of this pilot and this report this evening is a creative approach. I do agree with some of the comments being made. Where we've done stormwater management projects in other parts of town, you know, we haven't asked the residents to foot those specific residents that are being assisted to foot the bill solely for that. So I'm in support of the city funding this 100%. And I also think, as we've discussed this numerous times at the committee level, that there are still a lot of questions with respect to how we might approach this in this fashion, which is why I think it's prudent to put together a pilot program to explore how this is actually carried out, and from that pilot potentially, you know, pivot to move forward and bring something else back to the committee in next calendar year that would make sense for the balance of the residents. So the key here for me is pilot. We need to learn from our experience here, the technology that might be used to mitigate some of the risks here. And you know, lastly, I'm a firm believer that we do owe it to the folks in Crestview and Brenhaven to figure out and bring some relief to their properties. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Tamer to call the vote.
Park, absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
No.
Barimus. Aye. Hill.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Bram.
No.
Polumsky. Aye. Hill absent. Toledo.
Aye.
10 ayes, 2 nays, 2 absent.
10 ayes, 2 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 6.17 is approved. Down to 6.21, this is another report out of Public Works. I'd ask Clerk Tamer to read the recommendation.
Parkway trees provide several benefits, such as shade from heat and relief from humidity, making streets more walkable and bikeable and lowering the average electricity bills of surrounding households. There's also evidence that they improve the health of nearby residents and increase property values in the area. Due to the current pandemic, however, the city believes it is fiscally responsible to place the tree purchase and planting program on hold for 2021. The reduction in the project budget would be realized out of the general fund in the 110-6043-434-30-77 and 110-6043-434-40-61 accounts. It is, therefore, the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the 2021 tree purchase and planting program be placed on hold for this year. Signed, Jim Kennedy, Chair, Mike Brennan, Vice Chair, and Alderman Brian P. Cahill and Jacob Hill.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Brennan. Alderman Kennedy, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is, pretty self-explanatory. We're talking about not planting trees for 1 year and saving ourselves $244,000 during the economic stresses of 2008. We actually went 4 years without planting trees because of the economic hardship we were under. Thankfully, once things got better, we were able to make that up. So it would be my belief that while we don't plant a tree this year, we would make up for that over the subsequent years and get ourselves back whole when it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Dunn, you pulled this. The floor is yours.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Listening to Clerk Tamer read the first part of the council action leads me to believe that maybe we're going too far in zeroing out this program. And I think everyone in Elmhurst feels that trees are a good thing, that we have our parkway trees. We have them on our own property. I've heard from a lot of residents that they're just displeased with this particular action and zeroing out the tree program. I believe that the tree planting program is not a nice to have, but it's a valuable infrastructure investment that we have, much like the water mains that we invest in, sidewalk improvements. So the approach that council has been taking, we do have a pandemic that we were negatively impacted by. Our revenues are down. Last year, the initial estimate was $9 million. I think it came in closer to $3 million. We're looking at this program. This was formulated back in the August-September timeframe when the budgets were rolled out, and I believe we're in a better revenue position right now than we were back then when we planned it. We are taking a measured approach to a lot of our infrastructure programs. Our paving has been dialed back a little bit, reduced by a certain percentage. Water mains, along with even the pilot program that was just spoken about, that was funded at $250,000, but we're suggesting going in and doing a portion of it. So I think it's really a worthwhile program to not zero out this year, but look at some level of participation. I think that unlike a road program where you cut that and you can double up next year and then you have the same road, same amount of roads, improve roads, the trees need to grow, and so you need to plant them every year so they can continue to grow. So what Alderman Kennedy mentioned about 2008, I'm well aware of that. I was on the financial task force when we were looking at those issues and making recommendations to cut this program, cut that program. That recession was long and hard, and we finally did come out of it. We did, after a few years of zeroing out the tree budget, I remember making statements that we are catching up, we're funding that at an accelerated pace, and it took a while to catch up. I think it's prudent to come in at a different level, and I think that funding at 50% of the planned level that's mentioned above is reasonable. So at this time, I'm going to make a motion to modify the report to do just that, to change the recommendation from being zeroed out to have the recommendation be funding that at 50% of the planned level. And that would particularly impact what Clerk Tamer read, the last three sentences. Do you want me to read that, Mayor?
You know, Alderman Dunn, I have an idea for you here. I know where you're headed. Let me give you a suggestion. Tell me if this works for you, and then we'll ask for a second, okay? But I do have one clarification. 50%, do you want to put 50% of the budgeted amount back in, or 50% of the listed cost for the 636 trees?
Yeah, the latter, the planned amount for the 636 trees, what we were
Okay,
planning on.
so here's what I got, to help you shape your motion here. I'm looking at the second to last sentence in the middle of paragraph 3. It says, due to the current pandemic, however, the city believes it is fiscally responsible to place the tree purchasing program on hold. I believe your motion, I could encapsulate your motion with the following. A motion to change the report to say, due to the current pandemic, however, the city believes it is fiscally responsible to reduce the tree purchase and planting program for 2021. And then the last sentence would be, it is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Building Committee that the 2021 tree purchase and planting program be reduced by approximately 50%, not to exceed $122,000. Does that work for you, Bob?
That's great.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to change the report, to change the middle sentence to say reduce the tree purchasing program, and then the last sentence to be changed from on hold to reduced by approximately 50%, not to exceed $122,000. Do I have a second? Alderman Brand with a second. Okay, discussion on the motion before us. Motion to amend. Alderman Brand?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just thank Alderman Dunn for looking at this from not only short-term but also long-term. I know that we've done additional cuts or reductions last year due to the pandemic. I think it is prudent of us to maybe not spend the full that was budgeted or the full cost, as Alderman Dunn's amendment states, for the trees this year. But a 50% reduction gives us, to me, both the best worlds. So I think that we should move forward with a 50% reduction of the total cost of $244,334, and therefore we could move forward and don't have that much of a catch-up in subsequent years, but also conscious of our fiscally responsibility of making sure our budget's in line.
Okay, anyone else? Alderman Brennan?
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'm very impressed with how city staff, from a finance perspective, as well as the Finance Committee, is modeling our expenditures through this trying time. It's required a lot of discipline, and being a member of the Public Works and Building Committee, there's not a decision that we make without considering where we are from an overall budget perspective. And frankly, that's going to be required as we work our way out of this pandemic. So the way I see this, I like trees. I mean, I think they're very attractive. They define Elmhurst. But the way I look at this, if we vote to add 125,000 or 130,000 back into our expenditure, it seems reasonable to me with the work that's being modeled in the finance department, in the finance committee, that we'll have to make up that 125,000 or 130,000 somewhere else. So for those reasons, I will not be supporting the proposed amendment.
Additional comments? Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question is for the committee, and if they could shed some light on the justification for zeroing it out, given that it was in the budget. So if we had this as part of our spending program, it seems to me that there must be something that shifted, either some expenses coming in higher or the projected revenues coming in lower. So I'm wondering if anyone on the committee could just give an update about, how the actual numbers are comparing to the budget.
Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we built the budget, certainly we did not understand the full magnitude of our economic challenges. So then as committee chairs got together with Alderman Toledo taking the lead there, we had to look in a lot of places to try to figure out what we were going to do from an expenditure and a revenue side to get ourselves into a position where we didn't have to do things really drastic. And so things like tree purchases, which are a nice to have, they're not a must have. We can make those up. We've done it in the past. That was where that came from. Certainly we looked at reducing, our paving contracts, a lot of other areas, but this one kind of bubbled to the top as one that we could, make that reduction and not have a serious impact on other city services. To Alderman Brennan's comment, if we don't get it here, we got to go get it somewhere else. So that's the reality.
Alderman Toledo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These decisions are all about trade-offs. Do we all want trees? We all want trees. What else will we cut then? Because I think, to Alderman Kennedy and Alderman Brennan, then we go to the next thing in line that's someone else's, is someone else's most important thing. The idea here is that we have to make choices to keep our budget conservative, not put undue pressure on residents in the form of taxes that we don't have to, and to try to find things that we can cut or reduce that have the least impact on service to the people that live here in Elmhurst and that are relatively easy to recover from. And this is one of those programs, as has been stated by several other people. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Clerk Tamer, I'm going to ask you to, Alderman Dunn.
Just one more comment. I would just like to mention that if the motion that I put forward didn't pass, I would, like CJ, the young man who lobbied to get the fishes into Eldridge Park, take a look at our tree situation, see what he could do there.
There's already a GoFundMe out there. It's at $300.
Okay.
That's one tree.
That's it.
So we're going to add to CJ's plate. Alderman Bram.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
I'm
to-
sorry. Alderman
All right.
Plumsky hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the work of the committee and staff coming up with this. I know that there has to be an effort to adjust to what our situation is because of COVID. One thing, though, I think has not been addressed is that Elmhurst is a Tree City USA, and that by even cutting this in half, it would still allow us to maintain a recommended standard of that. So I think, while I understand the nice to have and need to have, I think this may have an extra component to it in that speaks to attracting people, businesses, and other amenities to Elmhurst by having that, by continuing to work towards that status. So that's, I would support it. Thank you.
Alderman Bram, you had your hand up before?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Polumsky touched on my comment in regards to would this impact our holding of Tree City USA. I don't know. I think it's Alderman Polumsky's assertion that it would not. But do we know from a committee or maybe even city manager perspective, would this have any impact on that?
City manager, care to opine?
Thank you, Mayor. To my understanding, it does not. There's a number of standards that we have to follow for Tree City USA guidelines. Planting is one of them, but they understand in circumstances like this.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? I'm going to ask Clerk Tamer to call the vote.
I'm calling on the motion to amend.
Yes, sorry, let me clarify, as I typically do when we have a motion to amend. Okay, so we have a report before us, yet we have a motion to amend that report. So the vote right now is whether or not we change it to the motion to amend and alter the report, which is taking the report basically as presented and adding 50% back into the budget, not to exceed $122,000. Is council clear on what we're voting on? Okay, we're going to vote on the amendment. Clerk Tamer.
Park, absent. Levin?
No.
Kennedy?
No.
Conquest?
No.
Brennan?
No.
Mulliner?
No.
Deuter?
Aye.
Verimus?
No.
Hill?
Aye.
Dunn?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Polumsky?
Aye.
Cahill, absent. Toledo?
No.
I have 5 ayes, 7 nays, 2 absent.
Rule of 7?
No, not on a report, Mayor.
Oh, not on a report. Thought you guys were going to make me vote on my last meeting
You're going to need 8 votes, so.
for the ordinance.
Yes, sir.
All right. Alderman Levin, next meeting, you can need 8 votes. Or, I'm sorry, the resolution or ordinance will need 8 votes. But this is a report, not an ordinance. Rule of 7 doesn't apply. The mayor does not have to vote. So you said 7-5, Clerk Tamer?
I have 5 ayes, 7 nays.
I'm sorry, 5 ayes, 7 nays. So the motion to amend fails. Back to the original motion before us, which is approving the report as is.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. Park, absent.
I'm
jumping ahead, sorry.
Any additional comments as it relates to the report as is before us? Clerk Tamer.
Park's absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Verimus.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Cahill, absent. Toledo.
Aye.
11 ayes, 1 nay, 2 absent.
11 ayes, 1 nay. Motion carries. Agenda item 6.21 is approved. On to committee report 7.1. This is a report out of Public Works. You're not going quietly, are you, Alderman Kennedy? I'll ask the clerk to read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the prioritization of stormwater improvement projects for 12 additional locations across the city be approved, that the city plan in future years for these projects, and the city attorney be authorized to prepare the necessary council documents. Jim Kennedy, Chair. Brian P. Cahill. Jim Kennedy, Chair. Mike Brennan, Vice Chair. Brian P. Cahill and Jacob Hill, Alderman.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Brennan. Alderman Kennedy, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is really just a placeholder for city councils going forward to let them know where we kind of stand from a stormwater standpoint. To date, we've spent just about $40 million. We've helped, 447 homes. we've had a significant impact, but there's still quite a bit to do with places like Spring and Eggleston, areas along Spring Road, individual areas that have had flooding in previous storms. So this, again, is really just to state that number of projects left. It totals up about $18.7 million, and we laid out a plan for how that could be done over the next 5 years. Certainly, this is non-binding, right? There's going to be councils and budgets that'll decide the when and the how to do this, but what we as a committee decided is, since there could be a fair bit of turnover in this committee, that we would at least give the council a place of where we finished up, so that the next council and next Public Works and Buildings Committee could pick that up and take action as needed. Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Tamer to call the vote.
Park, absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Verimus.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Cahill, absent, and Toledo.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 7.1 is approved. On to ordinances. This is an ordinance regarding a bond issue. I'm going to ask Clerk Tamer to read the ordinance, and I will ask the details because they were not completely available at the time of the posting of this agenda. Clerk Tamer.
Okay, hold on here, we're at the ordinance, okay. An ordinance providing the issuance of approximately $9,610,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2021, of the City of Elmhurst, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois, for the purpose of financing certain capital improvements within the city, refunding certain outstanding general obligation bonds of the city, and paying the expense incident thereto, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the winning bidder thereof.
So I will ask for a motion to approve this ordinance with the addition of the detail that the low bidder was Northland Securities, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the final amount, not the approximate, but the final amount as of this morning is $9,570,000. Motion to approve ordinance with those details. Motion by Alderman Toledo, second by Alderman Levin. Alderman Toledo, any comments?
Just a couple. This is I don't know, maybe historic. I don't know if we've ever had a rate this low. We recently went and as part of the process of the bond issue, we go and get a new rating from the bond agency, Standard & Poor's. We, once again, were reaffirmed with a AAA bond rating, which means that we get very competitive rates at which to borrow money in order to fund the long-term capital needs of the city. We got a rate for this issue of 1.4%. That is saving us $240,000 on a net present value for the existing bond that we're refinancing, which is about $6 million. And then we extended an additional $4 million, as the City Council will recall from a prior report, that we're getting also at that low rate. So it is so imperative that the city continue to have strong financial management, that the City Council supports the things that continue to result in a AAA rating, so that we can continue to accomplish the long-term investment needs of the city at extremely favorable financing terms for the residents of Elmhurst. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Tamer to call the vote.
Park, absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Verimus.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Cahill absent. Toledo.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 8.1 is approved. On to resolutions. 9.1, I'd ask Clerk Tamer to read the resolution.
A resolution approving and authorizing the execution of change order number 1 for the 2021 sanitary manhole rehabilitation project, Project 21-13. See item 6.16.
Put this before council. I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Brennan. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ties to item 616 in the consent agenda, where we ask to suspend the rules to be able to complete this work in a timely manner. Thank you.
Any additional comments? Clerk Tamer.
Park absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Verimus.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Cahill, absent. Toledo.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 9.1 is approved. On to 9.2, I'd ask Clerk Tamer to read the resolution.
A resolution authorizing the execution of a contract for the emergency repair to the wastewater reclamation facility excess flow bar screen. See item 6.17.
Put this before council. I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Brennan. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would seem fitting that the last thing I'm going to vote on has something to do with wastewater and screening out things that are going through the plant. So, again, suspending of the rules to get this work done now.
Okay. Additional comments or questions?
Mayor?
I'll go to Alderman Toledo first, then Alderman Brennan.
I think I might be going to point out the same thing that Alderman Brennan was, which was that it refers to the wrong agenda item.
Oh,
Just a
well, the agenda does.
See item 6.17, I believe it was 6.16.
Okay, as listed, we have a scrivener's error on the agenda, so we can ignore that, but the resolution as read is appropriate. Thank you for pointing that out. Is that it, Mr. Brennan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any additional comments? Clerk Tamer.
Park absent. Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Verimus.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Cahill. Absent. Toledo.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 9.2 is approved. On to agenda item 10, reports and recommendations of appointed elected officials. Mayor Morley, that's me. Couple things. We have our drug take-back event. You can read it on our webpage, but it is the 29th?
24th.
24th of this month at the police station, 9 to 2. We also have a kind of a mailbox permanently there in the lobby of the police station for any time you want to drop off any leftover prescription drugs you may have. Not only does it keep it out of the hands of kids, but it also keeps it out of our waste system, so it's kind of a win-win. Our last round of spring cleanup is this Saturday for folks who have a Wednesday pickup. Is that correct, Jim? Wednesday pickup. And finally, my last pitch for my last meeting, we have a program called Watersmart. We have an app. It's on your phone. You can also register. Watersmart gives you almost real-time usage of water. And as we head into spring and people might sprinkle or fill in their pools, et cetera, I would ask that you sign up. I think Elaine's at the city council meeting. The Watersmart program allows you to monitor your water usage. I think less than 50% of Elmhurst residents have signed up. I have found it a saver. I've been notified while on business trips that the rarely used bathroom in our basement was running, and I got to call home and tell them to fix it. So I would encourage everybody to join our Watersmart program. It is free. City Manager, on to you.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, any other business? Seeing none, we're going to go on to agenda.
That's okay.
Mike, you have some other business?
Just real quick.
Okay, lay it on us.
At our last city council meeting, we had a resident address us in public forum regarding some language at a business that they disagreed with. And I just simply wanted to comment, not only for us, because the resident challenged the council, but in general, that the First Amendment allows people to say things that are offensive. And we all have a right to be offended. And I don't think it's the appropriate place for people challenging local government or any government to start censoring what people say. So I wanted to respond to that because obviously feel very strongly about it. I think it's a basic tenet of being an American. And I agree with the person that stated. I don't particularly agree with the language, nor do I agree with that particular merchant. We've had trouble with him in particular as a city, and I know now as a community, but I still defend his right to say what he wants to say.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. There's our other business. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to go on to 11.2, address from outgoing elected officials. So we do this every 2 years. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not. What we do is we give anybody who's stepping down or not going to be here and is finishing up their term, we give them an opportunity to say a couple of words, address council or address the audience, any way they would like. Although it's listed separately on our agendas here, 11.2, 11.3. What typically happens too is then we give other elected officials up on the dais an opportunity to possibly comment, say a couple of words about the person who's leaving. So we're going to do that. As chairman, it's my right to combine or separate agenda items. So the way we're going to run this is an outgoing elected official will talk. Then if anybody here on the dais wants to make comment, we're going to let them comment individually to that person. And then we'll go to the next outgoing elected official who's going to talk, and if anybody wants to add to that. It's kind of a rhythm. You'll see it when we get going, but I think it's pretty clear. And we are going to start with Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, because it's only 9:01, I have 59 minutes before it hits 10 p.m., so I think there's enough time. For those of you who don't know, Mayor Morley always says nothing good happens after 10 p.m., so that was the joke there. At least Alderman Levin got the joke. I will say that time has flown by. I have been the 3rd Ward Alderman for 20 years. There's been many accomplishments, and during this past election campaign, it was very odd to me. I continued to have to say, I did this, I did that, to show the residents on what I accomplished over my tenure over those 20 years. But in all reality, it's not about what I did, it's about what we accomplished. We in the 3rd Ward, we as the city of Elmhurst, I am proud to say that there has been a lot in my 20 years that have been accomplished, not only with what I have contributed to or initiated, but what everybody who sits up here has done. Everybody who, as some of the residents have already stated, anybody who throws their hat in the ring to be a public servant or an elected official, I'll never say that other word that starts with a P here in Illinois, but anybody who is willing to volunteer and give their time back to the community needs to be commended. And I would not have been able to do what I have done, have accomplished without you, the residents, so I want to thank all of you. I will also say that I have been very honored to serve the 3rd Ward. I've been humbled by the support that I have received over my 20 years, and it's been a great privilege, and I woke up every single day trying to do my best, what's right for every single resident, not only in the 3rd Ward, but throughout the city of Elmhurst. I will restrict some of my comments because it is getting late, but I will just say that over my tenure, I've met many of elected officials, many residents, and other than achieving things within the city of Elmhurst and hopefully doing some good, I will say the biggest thing that I walk away with is many of friendships. former, current elected officials, residents, their lifelong friendships, and I take that to heart. I really appreciate the time, the energy, and the open discussions that I've had with every resident within town. So with that, I'll just end it with thank you to the City of Elmhurst, thank you to city staff, all of you, and thank you to the community.
Okay. Any comments? Alderman Levin.
Thank you, Alderman Bram. I'm sorry you gave up on your quest to be the city's longest-serving alderman and let Alderman Mulliner run away with it. I never thought you'd do that. In earnest, you've dedicated 20 years to the service of your constituents, which is truly commendable. You've proven to be one of the most knowledgeable aldermen. You've actually sweated the details, and you know what you spoke of when it came before us. I've had the pleasure of working with you on Finance Committee, which is the first time in my 10 years, and it was a pleasure to serve with you, and you contributed greatly there. You've always spoken extremely well in advocating your positions, and I've never doubted that you have worked solely in the spirit of public service. 20 years is a long time. I know that you've experienced the ups and downs of it, and I congratulate you sincerely and wish you well.
Thank you. I had hair back then.
Alderman Mulliner.
Alderman Bram, thank you for your service. You and I have served for the longest time together. I appreciate all of your knowledge and the opportunity to work with you. I think you've done a wonderful job to move the city forward with all the other city council members. You've done a terrific job of supporting us and helping us, and I truly appreciate everything that you've done. You've done a very good job as a public servant, and I'm sorry that you're not going to be able to pass up my record, but there's always that chance down the road. But I do appreciate it, and thank you so much for serving.
Alderman Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. So Alderman Bram, 20 years of Mondays, that's a chunk of time. And I wish you well. Monday night football might be a reality for you in the future. Although, you know, the residents that you serve, I'm sure every one of them are very appreciative, like myself. It does take a lot of time, and I wish you well, and look forward to seeing you around town.
Alderman Plumsky.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, Michael, thank you for your long-standing service to the residents of the 3rd Ward and the city throughout all of Elmhurst. Before you were my ward mate, you were my alderman. And though I have served for a couple plus terms, I have no way caught up to how much you have learned and had a hand in making possible here in Elmhurst. Your voice resonates with those who do not always feel heard and reaches online audiences who never before followed city activity. I most appreciate your attention to detail and your care to educate yourself on what's before you. Good luck to you. Thank you for your service.
Thanks. Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to share a story about Alderman Bram that I've heard multiple times from a 1st Ward resident. It's a story from before my time on the council, and there was an issue before the Public Affairs and Safety Committee related to parking and traffic around the YMCA. Alderman Bram was on the committee at the time, and rather than relying on meeting materials or the discussion at committee, Alderman Bram visited the site, observed and had conversations with area residents who happened to be outside. It's from one of the residents that I've heard the story. He was impressed with Alderman Bram's diligence, and I wanted to thank you for your diligence on that issue and others. Thank you.
Alderman Toledo.
Thank you, Alderman Bram. Thank you for your years of service to the city of Elmhurst and particularly to the 3rd Ward that you served well. I always appreciated your focus on saving money, which was a common goal that we always found as a mutual interest and led to some good work on the Finance Committee together. Good luck to you in the future.
Thank you. Alderman Dunn.
Alderman Bram, I've been on City Council 10 years, and you have been on there twice as long. That's amazing, because it seems like I've been on here a very long time. You have worked tirelessly on the issues that have been very important to you, and I appreciate your passion for those issues. You've always been very well researched on any topic that's been going before council, in particular the ones that you hold dear. The one thing I remember is when I first started, Alderman Brand brought the first artifact to City Council. I don't know what happened to your passion for concrete streets. Maybe that got fixed, but you actually brought a piece of the street in, and that was an attention getter, and I thought that was well done. But thank you for your service. It was a pleasure serving with you.
Thank you. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Bram, thank you for the time on Public Works and your 20 years of service to the city. Good luck in the future.
Thank you. Alderman Veremus.
Thank you for your dedicated service to our community. I enjoyed our short time on the Finance Committee together, our conversations about the veterans. I hope now you'll have some free time to go visit Washington, D.C. I know you want to do that. And I wish you a lot of success in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Honquist.
Alderman Bram, thank you for your service. As many others have pointed out, I've been watching the Kennedy boys tonight, and I've often joked that if I had an ice pick, I would have taken at least both of my eyes out, if not more, on some of these meetings over that. I can't imagine doing it for 20 years. So thank you for your service. It's been a long career, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. That's a tough act to follow. Anyone else? I'll say thank you to Alderman Bram. Kevin Graff kind of mentioned it earlier in his conversation, which is the first thing you had to do is throw your hat in the ring. And I know I've been doing this 14 years now. It can appear routine for some folks, but if you do it and you do it well, it really takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And it's not just people with, maybe on Facebook, with just having ideas. It's actually getting involved. And you've done that. And it's credit to you for doing that for 20 years. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? We're going to, I think Alderman Kennedy's waiting for a family member.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to jump to Treasurer Leibovitz. Elaine, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to say a few words?
Well, I hadn't prepared anything, but this is my last city council meeting, and I have to say, over the 8 years, something Bram said hit me, and that meeting new friends, and I think I got to know quite a few of the aldermen, and I enjoyed their friendship. I enjoyed being treasurer, and I had talked to Scott Levin a while ago about the job, and it really is a know-nothing job, so it should be abolished. The only thing it really had to do was sign some papers 2 or 3 times a year, and it doesn't seem like it's worth it for now. So if the city should decide, I don't know how you go about abolishing it. Not all cities I know have a city treasurer. So I would encourage any alderman to support it. And I'm sorry I didn't get to meet the aldermen that came on after the pandemic, so I'll meet them. But thank you all. Enjoyed working with you. Enjoyed working with you, Steve. I think you did a terrific job, and I enjoyed you all. Okay, goodbye.
Elaine, you served on the county board, right?
Yes.
How many terms? One term?
1 term, and I was city clerk also.
Okay. So I'll go first on this one. I can't pass this up. Elaine, I mentioned that she was on the county board and she was also the clerk because I always kind of felt that she was kind of taking it all in when she was here. She had done bigger things, but then she kind of decided to come down to the city council level and help us out. And if I were going to pick two words about Elaine, it would be her frankness and her candor. And, boy, you saw it on display. She is an absolute joy to be around, and she's a force to be reckoned with. And when she speaks up, she usually has something to say, and it usually has the same effect that it just had. And we'll definitely miss working with you, Elaine. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to your point, I'm honored to call you a friend. So,
Thank you.
Alderman Levin.
I feel like, despite what you just said, Elaine, about what the value of the position is, I think what most people don't know is the tremendous track record of your public service. And I did a little research. I may have gotten it wrong, but the city clerk and county board were just two. Could I add to that Friends of the Library president, League of Women Voters president, Elmhurst Symphony Board, President of the American Association of University Women, Rotary Club President, Elmhurst Craft Beer Fest Committee, a decent docent at Mays Lake, an excellent docent, I shouldn't say that, at Mays Lake Peabody Estate, Garden Club, and I don't know if I got this right, I was reading a law case that said you might have been the DuPage County Housing Authority Director, which is always fun.
Yes.
See, it's fun to be sued, then people know about you. So, really with those public credentials, I was just glad that you didn't run for mayor. Elaine, first I want to thank you for all of your public service. I'll miss seeing you at these meetings. I know I'll see you around the neighborhood, but I really do consider you a friend, not just because you're my hockey teammate's mother-in-law, but for other reasons. You've given me good counsel, and it's been a joy to serve with you. So I'm not saying goodbye at all, but thank you.
Alderman Toledo?
Thank you. Elaine, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and serve with you over the past several years, from finance committee meetings to seeing you walking on the prairie path with your friends. I know you've always had the best interests of Elmhurst in mind. I will never forget seeing you and your friend cross the finish line at the last turkey trot that we had after your stroke. What an accomplishment. I also will tell you that I will always remember you and think of you when we take out our fine china, because you gave that as a gracious gift to me and my family. So we will always remember you for that. Your presence on the council and your service to Elmhurst over the years will not be forgotten. Thank you very much.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the benefits of serving on council, as you've heard from others, is being given an opportunity to meet people you otherwise wouldn't. And Elaine is one of the people I feel very fortunate to have met and get to know. She is an unassuming powerhouse, and although she is never compelled to claim any credit or status based on her past experiences, she sure could have. You've heard tonight about her rich history of public service and community involvement. I don't know if I can live up to it, but I have said on multiple occasions that I want to be just like Elaine. One of the times I said it was after seeing her on the prairie path as she covered her typical 9 miles. So Elaine, it has truly been a privilege and inspiration to get to know you. Thank you for your service and for your friendship.
Alderman Brennan?
Thank you, Mayor. Elaine, 2 words come to mind to describe you. Super sweet. All right, and feisty, and humorous. You're one of a kind, Elaine. And to be quite frank, you're such a nice person. All the things that you've done on behalf of the community is out of the niceness of your heart. You're a very good person, and you will be missed. We just live down the street from one another, so see you in the neighborhood, but let me know if you need anything.
Alderman Plumsky?
Thank you, Mayor. Elaine, I too, like Alderman Deuter, want to be like Elaine. Through her roles as clerk, county board member, and treasurer, in addition to her ongoing involvement in numerous organizations, Elaine has exemplified lifelong community service. Her kindness and positive attitude with which she served has been contagious, and I believe we're all better because of her. Elaine, we first met at what has evolved into Cool Cities, and then I regularly saw you trucking down the Prairie Path. It was only later that I had a chance to really get to know you, and I've enjoyed visiting with you over the last couple of years. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman Dunn?
Elaine, I spent a few years on finance with you, and one thing I admired about you was you not only asked great questions, but you asked the obvious questions that none of us were smart enough to ask. So I appreciate that, because you were very perceptive on really the basic things that we needed to make decisions on. One thing I really remember about you, and we might have to check your sanity on this one, but you said you loved campaigning. You absolutely loved it. Loved knocking on doors, getting out with the public, and doing that on a regular basis. So I think that's great. It's a testament to your character, to really be a people person and find out what's going on in people's heads. Thanks for your service.
Anyone else? Alderman Honquist, and I'll go to Alderman Kennedy.
Hi, Elaine. I want to wish you the best, obviously. I was going to say that you're an excellent example of people that shouldn't think that as you get older you can't remain very engaged. As Alderman Levin pointed out, you've done more in your life than just about anybody I know, most of it coming out of your heart. I really respect you. I'll miss you, and I wish you the best.
Alderman Kennedy.
And I miss your laughter.
Well, I'll come over and take you out to lunch once your hip
Okay.
up, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Elaine, it's been a pleasure working with you. Before you were walking on the Prairie Path, I know from history that you were somebody that did many marathons, and that really is just that amount of effort and dedication just went through your whole life. Your many years of service, the way you did service, not only the city, the county, all those different things. You're a person with a terrific sense of humor. You made me laugh many times, and you really clearly had a great value of your family. You talked about them all the time. Great people. You made some great kids and grandkids, so they're a credit to you. I wish you luck in the future, and I'm sure I'll see you around soon.
Anyone else? Alderman Bram.
Thank you. Elaine, when I was appointed to the Finance Committee 2 years ago, as I've already stated, I was looking forward to working with and getting to know specifically you better than I did in previous years. Sadly, shortly thereafter, relatively shortly thereafter, the pandemic hit, and we really didn't interface with each other much in person. But as others have already said, I always enjoyed, as you've demonstrated tonight, how straightforward you are, how honest you are, your commitment to not only the city, but throughout the community. I also enjoyed and looked forward to the Zoom calls to see what Elaine was up to when we were doing our Zoom calls. I applaud you for your knowledge, not only within city government, community, but also just technology. I know that I wouldn't be able to learn new applications as well. So thank you for everything that you've done for the city and for the community, and I hope to see you around town.
Anyone else? Alderman Mulliner.
Elaine, thank you for all the service, and you've heard all the accolades from all of the other elected officials, and I would echo all that they have to say. My favorite memory of you, Elaine, was at the nursing home. You and I sitting there talking, and one time you said to me, "Now what am I going to do?" And I looked at you and said, "Why don't you run for treasurer?" And you said, "How can I run for treasurer? The application or the petitions have already been signed. I said, run as a write-in. And you said, well, nobody's going to be able to spell my name. But you know what? You did the best, and you got elected, and you've been a wonderful person and a wonderful friend. You and I go back a long time, and I cannot thank you enough for all the service that you've provided to the city of Elmhurst and your wonderful friendship that we've had over all of these years. Best wishes, and I know we'll see you soon.
Anyone else? Okay. We're going to go over to Alderman Kennedy. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right. First of all, I'd like to thank my parents who came to Elmhurst in 1963. I'd like to thank my family who, the first time they were here were 2, 4, and 6. Now they're 14, 16, and 18. Brendan was 2 feet tall, now he's 6'2". Thank yous have to go out to the city manager. Jim, you're as good as you get. You're equal to any CEO that I've ever dealt with, and you are a real credit to the city. Steve, we've known each other since we were in 5th grade in Brenhaven. You've done a great job as mayor. I'm sure we'll talk about that again. And again, you're as good a leader as I've ever been around. From a city staff standpoint, tons of people over the last 12 years. Corey, Kent, and Paul in Public Works have been great. I've worked with 3 Public Works directors, most recently Stan Bilecki, but then prior to that, Howard Killing and Mike Hughes, all class people. Tom Trzine and Marilyn Gaston in finance are terrific people and really good at what they do. Mike Kopp, who's assistant city manager, was in the fire department before that, has given many years of service to the city and is a great asset to us. Cassandra Schreff, who's communications, we've had her in that role. It doesn't seem that long, but I'm sure it's 5+ years, really has taken the city to another level in terms of communication with residents, and we're lucky to have her. We already talked about Elaine. Past clerks, Patty Spencer, who passed away, was a great, great person, and you know, Jackie has stepped into those shoes and continues to do a great job. Aaron Vandewald, who is behind our outreach to the business community and has done a lot to drive economic development. We wouldn't be anywhere today without what she has done as a person. And then from a public safety standpoint, Chief Ruth and Chief Tom Freeman, class people, great at their jobs, and have really put public safety at the forefront of what we need here in the city. I have to recognize a few fellow aldermen, former, that have served as mentors and great people in my life. Pat Wagner, who's here, Chris Healy, Kevin York, who bailed out and moved to Florida, Norm Leader, who bailed out and moved to Wisconsin, and Steve Hipskin, who's still around, and get to see those guys quite often. I want to thank my fellow 6th Ward aldermen. Anybody who knows in the 6th Ward, we pretty much divide things where the railroad tracks are. So I've always gotten the south end, and then before that it was Steve and now Mike. So somebody calls, we just pass them on to the guy on the right side of the tracks, and it seemed to work from there. Also, just a pleasure to work with the current chairman of the council, Danny, Mike, and Noel. Just a great job, and wish you luck going forward. And then the current Public Works and Buildings Committee, Mike, Brian, who's not here tonight, and Jacob. We accomplished a great deal in the last 2 years, and hope we continue in that role. So I know that, just a couple other things. I want to thank Mayor Pete DiCiani, who made me chairman of Public Works on my first day, essentially. So really appreciate the opportunity that gave me. And then thanks to the residents, especially in the 6th Ward, who made me their alderman, but then anyone who's been affected by flooding over the years and that we've been able to help, and by this council and previous councils, and hopefully we'll get to continue to do that work going forward. So go back to why I ran the first time. It was right after the economic collapse of 2008. Was looking for a challenge, and I pretty much figured out I couldn't ruin the city by myself. So one of 15 people, I thought I would give it a try. But what got me into it is what Susan Rose talked about, and that is that the city sued me and my wife because we encroached on a public park. And it was only after we went to the city and said we wanted to buy the property that ultimately we were able to settle on an agreement, but it was Steve Hipskin who I was talking to, and he said, you know, you ought to think about running for alderman. And I told him he was crazy, and then months later, I was pulling a packet. So I've always approached this move towards public service as, you know, don't complain if you're not going to take action. So that was one of my premises. And one of the things that was always said in my family was, to whom much is given, much is expected. So, and the last premise of why I did it was, growing up with guys like Steve, was to make Elmhurst as good or better than it was when I grew up. And so I think, I'd like to say we've probably done that. So, why leave now? Well, Thomas Jefferson said, you got to go back to the farm. So I appreciate all that has been accomplished here, all the friendships, and I look forward to going back as a citizen. Thank you.
Well said. Alderman Mulliner.
Jim, I can't say enough about what you've done for the city. All of the work that you've done in public works, all of the flood mitigation. The citizens of Elmhurst should be proud of the work that you've done and the leadership that you've provided. It was a difficult chore to move us from where we were to where we're at now. And you deserve a lot of credit for that, because you were able to be the person who took the lead on it and helped us to all understand what needed to be done in order to make the city a better community. I cannot say enough about all you've done for the city, and you've become a good friend. I really appreciate everything you have done. And yes, you and Steve have made the city a better city than what it was before. Thank you.
Alderman Levin.
Well, following off of Alderman Brennan, as I thought about my comments, I think of two words: Irish whiskey. No, I'm sorry. No, stormwater. The city and everyone truly owes you significant gratitude for your unwavering leadership in mitigating the most pressing and significant problem that we've faced in the time I've been on the council and before. It's easy to look back now that you and what you've led us through has been so accomplished, what we've done, but I know there were some very tough decisions, and I know sometimes you suffered criticism that was really the frustration of residents who just needed some relief, and you stood tall through that. I remember when you, at the last minute, decided to run for a third term, and I was so glad that, was that the third term? Yeah. So glad that you did, because your work wasn't done. And you've accomplished so much more in these last 4 years. So throughout your tenure, you've shown to be a strong and capable leader, and it's been my pleasure to serve with you. You'll certainly be missed. I think you're a tremendously fine human being. I think it was Elton John that talked about going back to the farm, but if Jefferson said that too, that's all right. So congratulations. Thank you.
Alderman Toledo.
Jim, the council will not be the same without your voice of common sense, practicality, and getting straight to the point. The city of Elmhurst really owes much to you for all of your leadership for stormwater and the, I think, 13 projects that were enumerated in the report that you went through tonight. You helped lead us through the vision of what we were going to do, the planning, and the execution. It really is an accomplishment that you can be proud of, and that's something I think you'll treasure, your service, and that's wonderful. Thank you for your leadership of the Public Works Committee, your advice and your friendship, and I look forward to seeing you at some of your favorite watering holes.
Thank you.
Alderman Toledo.
Deuter?
I'm sorry.
She changed her name back to Deuter.
I didn't wear a ponytail today.
Jim, I don't think it's a stretch to say that you are the architect of the city's stormwater management. The number of projects completed and policies implemented is an impressive legacy. Despite flooding being a complex and dynamic issue, your approach was consistent. Do projects that provide the maximum benefit in the shortest amount of time and at the lowest possible cost. That was a continuous mantra And I want to thank you for your steady approach and your leadership that has served Elmhurst very, very well.
Thank you.
Alderman Dunn.
Jim, 12 years ago, I was appointed to the mayor's financial task force and then subsequently to lead the Public Works subcommittee of that task force. And at our first meeting, Mike Hughes was there, the Public Works director at the time, and you showed up and you were extremely professional, very welcoming, very approachable. And I thought, what a great guy. I thought the city was lucky to have you in that role. And then fortunately, 2 years later, when I was elected alderman, I was appointed as vice chair of Public Works Committee to work under you, and I learned a lot from you. And the couple years I served in that capacity, had no idea you were going to carry on for so many years and do such great work. You had a great rapport with the staff, the Public Works directors. You mentioned the three that you worked with, and the leaders in Public Works from a city staff standpoint. So you worked very seamlessly, and you got a lot of things done. And I mean, that's really what it amounts to. So I appreciate results, and you produced results. Look forward to our bike rides along the Prairie Path and the few stops along the way. Hopefully those will be coming up again. We had a skip last year, unfortunately, but thanks for your service. Best wishes.
Alderman Plumsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim. It was in 2010 that I went for a run with my friend Jim Kennedy to discuss potentially running for alderman. At that point, I knew he was able to serve on the council, but also balance time with his family, including coaching and a demanding work schedule. I knew that his contributions to city council were significant and that he didn't do anything half-baked. So I was assured that indeed I could possibly add one more thing to my schedule. So I owe you a thank you for helping me to make that decision. But at that same time was the first, I would say, the first exposure to headlines about projected stormwater improvements to be $55 million. And that's when I first became aware of criticism about you, and I thought you handled that so gracefully. And I still do, and I think of that often as, you know, there's plenty of criticism to go around, and you've always kept your head down, and you've always been so willing to listen to the needs of the residents and to staff and to your colleagues. So I really appreciate how you handle and carry on when somebody says something critical, whether, you know, warranted of the city or not. It was with because of your leadership that the city has progressed to complete these stormwater projects. And it's one of the few things where it will affect somebody's life so profoundly, where you know, we make decisions every year, and of course, you know, people will see their tax bill or they'll notice a change in, you know, waste hauling services, but you have directly impacted so many residents who no longer fear a forecast of heavy rains. But those projects didn't just affect those people, but it's positively affected our property values and made Elmhurst a better place to live. And as Alderman Deuter stated, it's not an understatement, it's not exaggeration to say that you are the architect of our stormwater improvements. You know, each one of us has had an opinion on what we could have done differently, and each one of these stormwater projects has had a number of details, but it is a skill and an art that you have been able to encourage your committee to come to a consensus for us, the council, to be able to approve it. That is, you know, any one of us could have had a, you know, some reason to say, I want to do it differently, I want to do it better, but And sometimes, you know, not everybody can come to the same point, which is okay, but it's because of you and your ability to be practical and to keep your eye on the ball that we were able to achieve so much. So thank you. I look forward to maybe seeing you on the Prairie Path. Maybe we will be trailing Elaine again. But thank you and good luck. And enjoy your Monday nights. Michelle.
Alderman Brennan?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Jim, I have to say, I mean no disrespect to Honquest or Mayor-elect. I feel you're one of the best aldermen up here, right? So love your socks, very colorful, always. And I also thought that this Prairie Path thing was a you and I thing, right? So you're riding bikes with Alderman Dunn, you're running with Danny, and we're walking. So I remember as a junior alderman, you pulled me aside and we're talking about the committees, this or that, and we're talking about stormwater and keeping things in the street. And I'll never forget, I probably said one of the dumbest things I've ever said. I said, well, why don't we just make the curbs higher? And you sort of looked at me like, did he really say that? But you didn't say that. But your look, I knew what you thought. I was like, oh, that was a stupid question. So you so graciously explained why that wasn't feasible. So to say the least, I've learned a lot working with you. I think people have talked about your legacy. It's clearly stormwater management. You know, the pace in which you led, you know, the team to deliver was unbelievable. And it's very clear that you have a big heart for the community and the residents of Elmhurst. My parting request of you: the last several St. Patty's Day, you've dropped a 4-pack of Guinness by my house. Just because you're not an alderman and now you're a resident, I sure hope you keep up that tradition. Thank you for everything you've done, Jim.
Bram.
You said Bram, right?
I said Bram.
Okay. Alderman Kennedy, I want to first start out in saying that I appreciate your years of public service. As I'm sitting here and listening to others speak, I was trying to think if we were on the Public Works Committee together for 8 years or 10, but I'm going to go with 8 for this discussion. I enjoyed our very passionate discussions in Public Works Committee. I appreciate your detail-oriented approach. As a fellow engineer, I was very impressed with, and I'm expecting the Jim Kennedy City Council memoirs to come out after you have your Monday nights back, because I was very impressed with the level of note-taking that you took, not only during City Council committee meetings, but also during City Council meetings. So I'll be waiting to see those memoirs soon. But with that said, I do appreciate everything that you've done with assisting with the stormwater management throughout town. You took your position as Public Works Chair very seriously. You were always willing to listen to not only residents, but other elected officials, and that's something that I could appreciate. Even though we always didn't agree, we always did approach every single issue the same way, and that is with the details in front of us and making a decision that we both felt that was the best for all the residents. So thank you for your service, and I'm feeling a little bit jealous that others are getting alcohol and bike rides and walks, and I haven't been able to participate, but thank you and best of luck.
Thank you.
Alderman Varimus.
While I've only had the chance to work with you briefly, I want to thank you for your dedication and your hard work to the community, and I wish you all the best in the future. Thank you for it.
Thank you.
Alderman Hill.
Alderman Kennedy, it seems surreal that one of my first experiences remembering you was a year ago when I was offering public comments on the other side of the table to you and your committee. One of my first memories of having identified who the chair of the committee was, and here I am a year later on the other side of that table, and I can say you've made it a very gentle transition as best you could, and really exemplified what an able chair can do. And I regret the fact that I don't have more opportunities to watch you in action. Maybe you can give me private chair lessons at some point in the future and demonstrate what you do. But I sure appreciate the model you've been for me during these last 5 months, and I appreciate your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alderman Honquist.
So I want to thank the Kennedy family for supporting your dad for the last 12 years. I know the last 4 in particular were tough. I hope you recognize the great work he did. He's a better man than the work he did, and he's been a great friend to me. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Healy's going to come beat me up in a minute. But your father did something great with the last 12 years, and I hope you guys recognize that and remember that as years go by, and that you learn that sometimes you can do things that are great that's nothing to do with making money. So thanks for sharing your dad.
Is that it? I mean, besides me? So Jim, my friend, you have been with me for all 14 years at this. Before you became alderman, before I came alderman, you called me and said, I hear you're interested in being alderman. You need to go to city council tonight and watch what happens. And it was when you and Michelle were in your situation with the city, and it was my first taste. And I was very fortunate that you joined me 2 years later. And you've been there ever since. I was an alderman for 6 years, and we were co-alderman for 4 of those years. Even though I had 6 years under my belt as alderman, when I became mayor, you don't really know what the difference is going to be. And one of the biggest things that you don't recognize or understand that you need is strong leadership from your chairman. And I can think of no stronger leadership than I got from you as a chairman. I looked at it as didn't look at it as a mayor-chairman relationship. I really looked at it as a partnership, kind of like two brothers in a family business. If I know you're handling this, you know I'm handling that. It's great when you can work with someone who you have confidence in the work that they do, but it's even better when that person's a personal friend and you have personal trust in them. Ultimate, unlimited personal trust. It was a non-issue. I don't think Jim and I ever disagreed on one issue because it was always a conversation. And this whole stormwater thing was thrust upon us by Scott Levin. Because 3 weeks before I got sworn into mayor, he flooded the city. But you and I bonded together and figured to bail him out of it. So I'm reminded of what Tom Marcucci used to say, which is how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And I'll never forget, I thought Pete DeCiani moved mountains when he got us to pay for a $1.5 million study from Burke. And I couldn't believe the end result was like we just didn't have a couple of switches to flip to fix this storm. I mean, literally millions of dollars. I'm like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? If anybody's had the opportunity to go to Public Works Committee over the past 12 years, Jim Kennedy and staff start with a stormwater update. That's dedication. Every committee is, sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and a half of going over the priorities of the stormwater projects in the city. And in 8 years, we've gone from 0 to 13. And I don't even know the number of acre feet. It's over 100 acre feet. It's incredible. So, Jim, I couldn't have done it without you. I love the fact that you're not just a colleague, but you're a friend. And we will continue that friendship that started in 5th grade. So thanks, my friend, for being there all those years.
Steve.
Am I it? Is that it?
That's it.
It's up
One
to
more.
me?
Yeah.
One more, okay. So, a couple things, and I'll try not to drag it on. Alderman Bram wants me to be under 10 o'clock, so I'll see what I can do. But, I spent 8 years as mayor trying not to talk about myself. I always had, if I ever had help writing speeches, I had them pull the I's out, turn them into we's or what have you. I had a campaign manager the first time I ran, Jeff Reddick, and I said to him at the very first meeting we had, I said, well, the only problem I have about running for mayor is I don't like to talk about myself. And if you know Jeff, he's kind of sitting there, he's writing his notes. He goes, yeah, well, you're going to have to get over that. That was about it. And the good news is I ran unopposed the second time, so I only had to talk about myself for 4 months, and that was enough in my opinion. But this speech is a little bit about myself, and I'm going to take the opportunity to make it short. First and foremost, I want to say that any successes or anything that we could point to as successes that we have achieved over the past 8 years is we. It's been a team effort. Second of all, there's too many people to recognize and not enough time in this night for me to recognize all of the people that have contributed to my career as a mayor, but really the success of Elmhurst over the last 8 years. So if I don't mention you personally, it's an oversight on my part. It's not a reflection of how much you've meant to the city or to me. But come May 4th, I'll have plenty of opportunities to go grab a drink with anybody. As I mentioned before, I was asked, I thought about running for alderman 14 years ago. In fact, my wife and I were going through some stuff and some medical issues, and she turned to me and she said, I know you, it's on your list. I'm a guy who has a bunch of lists. It's on your list. You should run for alderman. And so it started with her, and she's been, her support has been unwavering for those 14 years. And she's here in the audience today. And sure enough, I looked it up on my goal list, and it literally said run for alderman. It didn't say become alderman or anything else. And as I was considering doing it, I got a call from my friend Jim Kennedy. Hey, Steve, I understand you want to run for alderman, go to this meeting. So I went to the meeting, and Jim joined me 2 years later, and thank God that he did. And I was alderman for 6 years. And then a lot of times in politics, it's the wheel of fortune. Depends on where you are in the wheel of fortune and where you are in life. And when I ran for alderman, I was just excited to be included. I didn't have any intention of running for mayor. But the wheel of fortune kind of turned around, and there was a vacancy, if you will. And it was kind of a joke. We had a pretty tight-knit group of aldermen at the time, and my joke is that somebody said, like, I blame it on Healy, everyone who wants to be mayor, take one step forward. And I was the only one dumb enough not to take a step backwards. And I was sitting there by myself. So they all kind of turned to me, and I was very fortunate. I had the support of 10 aldermen when I ran. So I kind of looked at myself as the reluctant mayor. But I was happy to do it, it's very daunting, and Jim probably feels the same way. In the town that you grow up in, you really don't want to screw up. So you give it your all every chance you get, and I've been doing that up until even today. I've had numerous calls today just on being mayor. But if I had to look back and I had to point out some political mentors, one would be Gene Hoffman. Gene was my stepfather. Later on in my mother's life. Gene has since passed away, but he was a state rep, lived in Elmhurst for 28 years. He was a state representative for 28 years. But he showed me that you could serve honorably in this dirty game of politics. He made it look honorable. Tom Marcucci taught me the importance of running a great meeting, and you have no idea how quickly a meeting can get out of control. Especially with herding 14 cats like this. So I'm indebted to Tom for that. Susan Rose, who's not here, I know she had to take off, but she was one who taught me to take politics out of it and just do your job. And Susan was forever, when necessary, she was the voice of reason that brought us back to the problem we were discussing when sometimes we would veer off that path. And then finally, Norm Leader, and these are people I would consider mentors early on. Norm Leader gave me an insight to human nature and an ongoing history lesson to this day. I have to throw out a quote if I'm talking about Norm. Those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. That's George Santayana. That's a paraphrase. But I kind of felt that way. And I always look to members on the council like Alderman Mulliner, Alderman Rose, even Jan Vanek, who was on before I got there, but I became a friend during the election, of people I could learn from. After a certain amount of time, though, I consider the folks on the council my friends and peers. No longer mentors, but friends and peers. I don't just have one or two stories about these folks up here. I have 10, 20, 30 stories. I mean, you put in the time every Monday for 14 years, you get to have some serious stories, not to mention some of the extracurricular activities we enjoy outside of council. So there's so many people I want to thank, and I don't want to miss them. But a few come to mind. Chris Healy, who's here, Kevin York, Pat Wagner, Danny. She's kind of like Twiggy or Cher. She just has one name, Danny. I got a call from Danny. Danny and Marty, my conquest, Mark Mulliner, Scott Levin, Noel Toludo, just to name a few. And I know I'm missing so many. I tried to add it up once, how many people I'd served with. Elaine Leibovitz, Jackie Tamer, who made reference to the Youth Commission earlier. She said there was 2 people on the Youth Commission when I became mayor. In fact, a lot of our boards and commissions, I would say almost every single one had an open spot, and it took a long time to fill it. And certainly as a mayor and someone in the executive position, you're not only looking for someone to fill it, but you're looking for someone to take charge. And Jackie certainly had done that. She's a family friend, and she comes from a family tradition of giving back. And her parents both gave back their whole life, and I know they're proud of her. I know I'm missing some folks. So to the new folks, Jennifer, Jacob, and Brian, I've gotten to know Jennifer a little bit, if I had, and then Emily and Chris coming on the council. If I had to give you guys a little bit of advice, it would be don't get comfortable, and always do your homework. Don't just show up, and I know you're doing it now. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying don't just show up to a meeting. It's the worst thing you can do. Do your homework, because it will show, and you personally will get more out of it, and your residents will thank you for it. I also want to thank staff. I've been very fortunate that I get to work with people who love their jobs. It's kind of a unique situation. I've been in a lot of jobs where people don't love their jobs. I think of people loving their jobs, and I see Dave Oberg out there. Talk about the epitome of somebody who loves his job. I've had the opportunity to work with so many great people. Mike Kopp, Aaron Jason, Cassandra. Cassandra and I, has she had her baby?
Not yet.
Okay. Cassandra, really, as Tom Marcucci puts it, Cassandra learned to write in my voice. So she helped me out on a lot of my speeches, a lot of my front porches, stuff like that. And more often than not, we would get together and we would just laugh, and we would do videos. And I know Jim could hear us in my office. He could hear from his office, like, what are they doing? And it would be a 3-minute video, but it would take us 2 hours. And I would really hope that Cassandra could figure out how to edit 90 seconds out of the 2 hours we've been filming. She's just a bright spot here, and I'll certainly miss her. To Jim Grabowski, he's been the city manager the entire time I have been mayor. I forgot to mention Tom Trozine, and as Jim mentioned, I was spoiled when I first got on the council. I worked with Marilyn Gaston. What a wonderful person. Just a wonderful person. My first exposure to city staff, and boy, I just thought these are people who care. And Tom Trozine's done a great job when she retired. But to Jim Grabowski, what a great name, right? Sounds like from the Super Bowl Shuffle. But a lot of residents don't know Jim, and the city manager is kind of put in this thankless job where they're not supposed to be in the limelight, but they're the guy we pay the money to, and he's our CEO, and he's supposed to make the tough decisions. And Jim's very good at taking responsibility. When the buck stops here, that's Jim. And the residents of Elmhurst don't necessarily need to know that, but they should know that Jim is the best person we have for the job. He makes my job easier. He makes Elmhurst a better place every day. I know that all of us here are part-time elected officials. Jim Grabowski's the one who gets up at 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and thinks about Elmhurst right up until he goes to bed. Jim and I have developed a great trust over the years. I mean, I talk to him probably about as much as I talk to my wife. That's probably going to be one of the biggest changes, is not 5 phone calls with Jim Grabowski today. That's going to be weird on a daily basis. So Jim, thank you for your hard work, and the residents of Elmhurst are lucky to have you. To all the elected officials, and to anybody who's listening, everybody can have a great idea, but you need to be able to get it done. And that's actually one of the reasons why I ran originally. Just wanted to get something done. But to be a successful elected official, you have to build consensus, you have to explain your ideas, you have to be open to changes and improvements. You can't just stick to your ideas. One of the best people like that was Chris Healy. Used to be able to pivot very well, still keep on track, but if things had to be tweaked, he was very good at it. I certainly want to thank all the elected officials. I say that there's 3 sets of friends I have in my life. There's my high school friends, they're my college friends, and then I kind of came to this fraternity of elected officials. And I'm so fortunate to make lifelong friends in doing something that I loved. I want to thank my family for their love, patience, and support. I know my in-laws were here earlier, but I think it was past their bedtime. So I'm sorry that but they loved Elmhurst so much they moved into it. So what more could a guy ask? Only 10 minutes away.
No complaining.
To my wife, Nancy, and I've told her, I mean, I've had a lot of these speeches over the last 6 months, but she knows what she means to me. And quite frankly, any success that has happened in this job as an elected official, she shares responsibility in that success. And then to my wonderful kids, Reed, Jeanette, and Anna, who are all in college right now, I can only imagine how difficult it was to go through high school with your dad as the mayor. So they toughened them up a little bit. To all the boards, charities, and commissions that I've had to deal with, all the people that volunteer that make Elmhurst great, Kathy Jordan, Susan Rose are some that just come to mind. I was listening to a Rich Reichert podcast just the other day, and they were interviewing Tom Marcucci, and they said, well, how many people in Elmhurst are in the know? I can't remember what the question was. But it was something like 400 or 500 people in Elmhurst are really in the know. But what was interesting about that comment, that Tom Marcucci followed it up with, but it's not an exclusive club. If you want to be in the know in Elmhurst, just get involved. Be dedicated. Join a commission, join a board, and I will tell you in a very short amount of time, that group of 400 will welcome you and they'll know you, and you'll be surprised at what you can get done. If I had to point to achievements, 2 achievements I would point to, one be stormwater that I worked on with Jim Kennedy for 8 straight years. Going from 0 to 12 or 13 projects is a pretty big deal. I would also point to what I'll call controlled responsible growth. I think that Elmhurst has had to morph and change over the years to become a destination for different reasons. I always point to my phone and say, when you can order 50 to 60% of what you spend in your retail dollars on your phone, you better figure out a way to be relevant. And we've done that. We've created density in our downtown that not only keeps our seniors and empty nesters in town, but it's also what I call the farm league for young couples who haven't bought a house yet. So we've created density not only for that, meeting needs, but that also helps keep our downtown vibrant. I think that's so crucial. I believe density is and was the key to our future, as long as it's done properly. A quick shout out to the media. They take meetings like this that last 3 hours and they have to put them into 3 paragraphs. So they do their best, but don't believe everything you read. Try to go get more information. Now, 14 aldermen is not normal. Chicago has 50. I think West Chicago has 14 and we have 14. Everyone else in the state has 9 or 7 or 5. So the good news about 14 aldermen is it's ward politics. If you don't know your alderman, your neighbor knows an alderman in your town or in your ward. Get to know them, and if you want to get the real story, talk to your elected official. To my fellow elected officials, I'm going to use a nugget that Mike Kopp shared with me just last week. And he said something to me. He paid me a very nice compliment, and I'm about as good as taking compliments as Alderman Deuter is. It's the last thing you want to hear. But to my fellow elected officials, the key to your collective success is Elmhurst first. And that's what Mike Kopp said to me, and I've been trying to think about, going back through the last couple of years and how I've been mayor. And it was an easy default, Elmhurst first, what's best for Elmhurst. A lot of times, city manager or any one of the staff will come to me with a situation, I'm like, oh, okay. And they're being very nice and judicious on how they present it. I'm like, okay, but what's best for Elmhurst? And they usually had the answer, but they didn't want to tell me. They wanted me to present all the facts. So to my fellow elected officials, Elmhurst first. To the residents out there, there's 70 to 80% of residents that go to work every day, drive their car, and they just want their town to be nice. They want their streets clean, they want their garbage picked up, they want their water to show up at their house, and they go about their business and they don't really get involved in city politics. And that's their right to do so. I think they are part of Elmhurst because they believe Elmhurst is a great town. But I would encourage those folks to get involved. You'll be rewarded for it. And the last thing I'll say is something that I've said on every front porch except this last one because I used it in past tense. But at the end of every front porch, I used to say it is, but now I will say it was my honor and privilege to serve the residents of Elmhurst and the city of Elmhurst. Thank you. Any comments? Alderman Mulliner.
Steve, I've gotten to know you over the years, and the thing that I can say is your stepdad, Gene Hoffman, who I knew very well, would be very proud of you. He's looking down on you right now and saying, well done, well done. You did a fantastic job. You honored his legacy of keeping politics out of Elmhurst and providing a service to the town. And I thank you, and I thank your family for allowing you to serve Elmhurst.
Thank you. Alderman Levin.
Well, Mayor Morley, I got to say, you've had a great run. The city's in excellent shape, and you certainly deserve a great deal, if not the most credit for that. Serving with you at the helm of the council was a wonderful experience for me. What I appreciate is you let the aldermen and the committees do their work. There's never been a time when you've called me and said, this is the way we're going to do it. There have been many times when you've called me up about an issue, you told me what you thought, or actually you would ask me what I thought. I'd say, what do you think? And very often if your thinking was different, you would persuade me through a conversation that maybe an adjustment in my perspective would be a good idea, never imposing your will on that. I know the last year must have been terribly trying. Watching you navigate the pandemic made me appreciate your experience and in particular your good judgment in handling that. I'm not sure if it was fair to ask our part-time mayor to put in 35 plus hours a week, but you did, and we all owe you a great deal, not only for your 8 years, but in particular for navigating us through that most difficult time. Most important, like many I'm sure will say, I appreciate having become your friend. You've been a trusted advisor to me. I don't think there's ever been a telephone call or a meeting we had that was void of laughter. Just hearing you answer the phone, "Shallow." And I think my experience is widely shared by the other aldermen. I want to thank you for what you've done for me, for all of Elmhurst. I want to wish you well, and I'm looking forward to seeing an even more relaxed Steve Morley out and about. And in the interest of letting others speak, I'm going to abbreviate my comments, but thank you, my friend.
Alderman Deuter, then I'll go to Alderman Toledo.
So it is hard to imagine there being a mayor that puts forth more time and energy into the job than you have, Steve. It's not an easy job. In fact, I think it's an incredibly challenging one. And you regularly impressed me by making it look easy, which is a reflection of your ability and your effort. Personally, I'm grateful for your willingness to meet to discuss issues or provide guidance. Every time I asked, you would make time to talk, and although we sometimes saw issues differently, I've always respected your input. You've helped me to be a better and more effective alderman. Steve, thank you for your strong and steady leadership and for the tremendous time and energy that you gave the city. Thank you for your service and for your friendship.
Thank you. Alderman Toledo.
Well, Steve, you've taught me a lot over the last 6 years. I remember my first my first observation of city council, this was when I was an observer for the League of Women Voters, was how important it was to understand procedurally how to navigate the process of the council. And I vividly recall my first attempt at a minority report and seeking advice from you on, like, so what do? I don't agree with this. How do I handle this? And, you know, you gave me, I think you disagreed with what I was doing, but you laid it out for me and you explained it to me. And that's the kind of leader you are. You know, other things you've taught me, you know, how to lead and guide your peers, because we are peers up here, to teaching my son and I how to use a table saw in his free time. You know, all the free time that the mayor has, he also still helps out the Cub Scouts. You've really been a mentor to me, and I appreciate your leadership and your mentorship. I do wish that I was a natural comedian and could tell some funny anecdote. I'll leave that to some other folks here. But that's not necessarily my gift, but I am sincere. And I can say without a doubt that the city of Elmhurst is lucky to have you, and I was lucky to have you, and I am lucky to have you as a mentor and a friend. Good luck, and thank you.
Alderman Brennan?
Thank you, Mayor. So the Brennans in 1996 moved to Elmhurst for one simple reason. We thought it'd be a great town to raise our kids. And that has certainly turned out to be true. All kids are off at college, getting smarter, hopefully smarter than their dad. So Elmhurst is, you know, definitely a great place for a lot of reasons. And under your leadership, Steve, you know, Elmhurst is thriving, and it's truly positioned, you know, to be a great place for future generations to raise their kids. So as I think about, you know, legacies, that's pretty impressive, and you should be very proud of that. So I'm going to keep this short as well. You know, you've clearly set the bar. I, as a resident, I couldn't be more thrilled than where you've left Elmhurst. And as I left for the meeting tonight, you know, Kathy's yelling at me out the door. Hey, my wife is Kathy Brennan. And she says, hey, make sure you tell Steve thanks for all his service. And she also said, make sure that Nancy and Steve know they're invited every year to our St. Patty's Day party. She really emphasized you, Nancy, by the way. But the Brennans are forever grateful for the service that you provided. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to have more leeway on St. Patty's Day
Yeah,
these
there you
days,
go.
so I'll definitely take you up on it. Alderman Bram?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been a privilege to refer to you and call you Mr. Mayor over your tenure as mayor. We met what seems to be a lifetime ago when you were first alderman and now mayor. I as well appreciate your leadership, especially over this past year during this pandemic. I know it's been challenging for everyone within these four walls. I don't have a funny story either, but I will say running a meeting, and Mr. Mayor, you've already touched on this, is one of the most critical points of being the mayor of any city, let alone city of Elmhurst, with all the 14 aldermen. And you've done a great job with that. One of the takeaways I will say in regards to that was you were an alderman at the time, and you came up with the idea during budget discussions, because they could go kind of long, of circle back items, which we still use today. And former Alderman Morley, current Mayor Morley, I credit you for that, because that made the budget discussion so much more efficient, because we would go off the rails and talk about everything under the sun, and by isolating an issue and coming back with additional information from staff or what have you was a great thing. Lastly, I'm just the timekeeper, and you're out of time. It's after 10. Just kidding. That was my joke. But with that said, thank you for all your years of service. Thank you for running for alderman. Thank you for being our mayor for all these years. And not only yourself, but your family. And I hope you enjoy all your additional free time.
Thank you. Alderman Plumsky.
Thank you, Mayor. So Steve, I'm not going to review the accomplishments that you've led during your tenure because we'd be here way too long, but I do want to touch on what you haven't done, and Alderman Levin talked about this a little bit. You've consistently worked with staff to prepare us to make a decision and help position us to proceed, but you did not put your thumb on the scale. I appreciate how you valued everybody's opinion and that you knew that if we had the tools, then, you know, the right decision would become apparent, and I appreciated that. It served to amplify the voices of all the Elmhurst residents in that each alderman had the ability to vote in a way that they saw fit. So by you allowing us...
Your conference is ending now. Please hang up.
We're good.
By you facilitating this process, you gave a larger voice to everybody in our community. And as I'm sitting here critiquing my own public speaking ability, I am reminded of how good you are at being mayor and the public speaking aspect, and not just in our meetings, but in ceremonies and at events. And I think that's why so many people connect with you, in addition to the show. But I think that it makes you very relatable, and I think people appreciate your delivery and how you hear people and how you communicate with them. But you know that I like to prove you wrong, and it's 10:15. And I want to say that while we're all reflecting on an ending, I want to take time to acknowledge a new beginning, or more of a renaissance, and we're witnessing the rebirth of Fun Steve. So I'm a little skeptical, knowing that you have a new routine of getting up before dawn, so I don't know how fun that is. However, I have faith that you will take the time to reacquaint yourself with Fun Steve and fully become Fun Steve. That said, that's happening after 10 p.m. So hopefully we can keep that in mind, that sometimes something good does happen at this late hour. But I want to thank you for your service, and we'll miss you.
Thank you. Alderman Dunn.
Steve, when I was a new alderman, and I was sitting in meetings, and you had been on council for 4 years at that point, but you were still fairly reserved, very quiet at the meetings. You held judgment on a lot of issues, and I couldn't really get a read on you with a lot of things. But one thing that seemed to be your stick was that you were focused on head count, and I remember that in meetings, and I kind of viewed you as a head count hawk, and I like that actually, because I'm fiscally conservative, and with that being by far the biggest expenditure in the city, the labor and the pensions, I thought that this guy's he's a good asset to have on council, and maybe even for bigger and better things. Then when you were heading up DPZ, you did a lot of work establishing the TIFs. That hasn't been mentioned tonight, but that's another thing that I credit you with, is sort of shepherding us through that process with the consultants and the uncertainty of the other taxing bodies and the public, and getting those done. And look what it's done, especially in our downtown. It's been highly successful. I helped Steve on his mayoral campaign 8 years ago. He didn't need that 4 years ago because he was unopposed. But what I liked about Steve is he has really good political instincts, and he has a very good network that he relies on to bounce ideas off of and get guidance from, and he's unabashed in using it, and he uses it very effectively, and we should all do that as elected officials. Another thing that Steve, I thought, did well, I mean, stormwater development, that was mentioned, but getting some of those IGAs done that we got done in the last 8 years or so, they were very tedious, tenuous, and somehow he got us through those to get those done. It was mentioned you ran a great meeting. You are the ultimate parliamentarian. It just amazes me. You must read Robert's Rules of Order every night going to bed, because you were on it. It just amazed me. But I'll end with the one thing that you've put in my mind that's so important for city council and elected officials is we're really here to plan for the future. So that is the most important thing that we do. And I think we take that serious, and that's paid a lot of dividends. So thanks for being so effective at the job, and I wish you well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jennifer?
Me.
Oh, let's go with Elaine.
Yes. I want to say, Steve, the thing I admire most was how you ran the meeting and kept 14 people in line. So we had a dignified meeting, and I could not believe how much time of your personal time that you gave to the city. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. Alderman Vremus?
Mayor Morley, I will make this short and sweet. With a grateful heart, I say thank you for your inspirational leadership and friendship. It has been a true honor to serve with you. I know you plan to spend quality time with your family, your golden retriever, Charlotte, and fishing, which I'm slightly jealous of. Thank you for making Elmhurst a vibrant community. Thank you for everything.
Alderman Hill?
Mayor Morley, all these things that I've heard, I don't know how much more I can add to it, except to say the things I've noticed is that I found you a very engaging and wonderful public speaker at all times. In fact, I was listening to how many times you didn't use the word "I" when you just made that speech a while ago, and you didn't use it very often. I didn't keep a count, though, I'm afraid. But I will say that I always found you to be a great rhetorician and also very good at reiterating things in a way that people can understand. I heard a quote from the rapper Mr. Doom the other day, and Mr. Fans. Reminded me of you, actually. He said, you always put people in their own shoes, right? So how is it relevant to themselves, right? You always bring it back to them. And I thought you were very good at making things relevant to your listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Can I talk? Is that okay? Elaine talks, so I figured maybe
No,
I can
go
say
right ahead.
something. Okay.
Of course.
No, I just want to say it's been a pleasure over the past, not just year, but working with you the past, I feel like it was my 7-8 years ago with the Youth Commission, and I just want to say that integrity you bring to the office and the transparency and the honesty you bring has always been admirable. And granted, my family has known you for years, but it's been one thing to hear how wonderful you are from my mom and dad, but it's been another thing to experience it myself. So thank you for all the opportunities and the belief you've had in me. I wouldn't be where I am without your belief. So thank you, and good luck to you. And
thank you.
I know I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Alderman Honquist?
You gotta go last, Jimmy.
Thank you.
So I'm a little surprised at all these accolades, because since I know you so well at this point, I'm kind of stunned at how great a mayor you've been, given all the personal delinquencies you have. But it's been. I was your first, I think, decision as mayor.
Yeah.
Your worst. But you have, as I've told you personally, you've been an absolutely great mayor. You're a great friend. And knowing some of what you've gone through over the last 8 years personally, I think if people knew that, they would know how truly great of a guy you really are. So thanks, Nancy, for putting up with this and You're going to be truly missed.
Thanks,
Thanks, Mayor.
Mayor, may I go?
Yes,
Because
please.
I believe Jim Kennedy
Jim's gonna
wants to
wrap
be
it up.
last. He's going to wrap it up. And I reserve comment on everybody else, but on behalf of staff, let me say that we've all enjoyed working with the four of you over the years. As the mayor said, we really do like coming to work. And one of the reasons why is because we don't feel like we work for you, but we work with you. And that's really important in a business like this, because this council, all the elected officials I've had the benefit of working with so far and will, they really care about the community, and that makes a huge difference in doing the day-to-day operations and working with the elected council. I could go on and on about our relationship. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and your family, of course. Over that time, we know more about each other's families than probably some of our relatives do. And I guess it'll just be one less Jim that you'll answer the phone to from now on.
Mhm.
So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Jim. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too will be very quick about this. You know, when you do this job, you learn a lot about yourself, but you learn a lot about the people you're working with. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. When you say Elmhurst first, that's 100% true. So you've done a great job as a mayor. You've been a great friend. You've made friends with my wife after bringing her a case of Pinot Grigio. We thank her for the years of service.
Least I could do.
You know, our success is your success and vice versa, and we would not have accomplished as much as a city without you. And you're, again, great friend. You're a credit to the city. You can walk away knowing that you've made this place way better. So congratulations on getting out, and look forward to Fun Steve making a...
He's looking forward to it, too.
One of these here.
Thank you. I think they just wanted to stretch their legs. Well, thank you, everybody. I truly, I'm not good at taking compliments well, but I did read a book more than once, and you're supposed to say thank you and be gracious. So thank you, everybody. It's been a labor of love. I am not going to say it's been easy, but I pretty much loved every minute of it. And like I said, I felt like I was kind of on stage in my own town, and the last thing you want to do is screw up where you live. So I kind of had that on my shoulder every time. So anyway, it's been a great run. I'm looking forward to kicking back and watching the rest take over. I've said this a lot, too, in the last 6 months, trust in the process. This town's got I say it often, the town's got 44,000 people who care a lot, and that kind of focus is up here. So the town's going to be doing just great, and that's been my honor to serve. I look forward to observing for a little while. Maybe I'll get back involved on a commission or something much later, but going to observe for a while, spend time with my family, who's been very patient. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Bram. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned.